June 17th, 2025, 6:30 PM. We have full attendance today. Phil Chikorowski did not run for planning board, and so replacing him is John Griffin from the planning board. So, John, you're coming into this both new to the planning board and new to the zoning review steering committee.
Yes,
So,
first base.
I'm sure a lot of questions, so if you have anything in particular, just, feel free to ask that.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So where we kind of left off, and it's been a while, obviously town meeting, May 5th, everything that was put forward passed, which is great. So those are changes to sections 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, and the ADU bylaw. So all that's been submitted to the AG, haven't heard back. The ADU is the one that, I know Jim will tell you too, we're hearing some things from a few other towns that I wouldn't be surprised if something's flagged on that one, just because it's new, and that way, if anything happens, we'll be notified, and, it's
So
something that.
what was flagged?
No, just I wouldn't be surprised if
Oh.
something is, only because the way they have it right now is.
The AG is chopping every town's to pieces.
Oh, really?
Like every town's getting destroyed by the AG because they're trying to, even the latest version of their version is designed to be two-family, 100%. And they're chopping, so Canton just got torn to pieces, Weston got torn to pieces. Was it Haverhill, I think I said? They tried just put a moratorium to give themselves more time, and they said, like, you're not getting a moratorium tough, it's in. They're not holding back on anybody.
So one of the things, we'll find out. I thought it was a pretty good bylaw. The only thing that, would concern me is the fact that the way you're supposed to look at it and zone it is make sure you treat it as you would a single family home. And so some of the provisions in there, like the limited site plan review, which we're allowed to have, there was also the requirement of, hey, we're gonna notify direct abutters. Well, that might be an example of like, well, do you notify direct abutters if you're building a single family home? So that could be, I'm just speculating
Yeah.
that. We'll see what happens, but I
Yeah.
won't be negative, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah, no, that's one I could see chopping, but
Um,
again, they even reinforce that you could ask for a full site plan, which makes no sense.
yeah.
That's where you're saying one thing, but you're doing another, so
Right,
that's
yeah,
where it gets.
because you told us they advised towns that they can and
Yeah.
should,
Yeah.
and
And then
if
they
they
say,
feel.
but you can't do something less than that, which is really weird, so
So-
every town's been chopped
Yeah.
so far.
So what about the sewers, like,
They can't touch that.
Huh?
So the sewer, they still can't touch, so the sewer falls under, actually state regs under 760 CMR, and that says, as long as it's approved by either state level municipality or local or county, if you have a reg in there, you follow by that, so if you want independent services. So our Water and Sewer Commission has a reg that if you do a standalone house, you have to do separate water and sewer tie-in. So I believe
That's also not something we have clear within the zoning, it's more of how we would
it's the
process it.
department.
Is it department?
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to worry about that.
No, we can't do
Um,
anything that, because that's there, so
Yeah.
on that one, it gets sent to, so the family on Comstock
Yeah.
went to them and asked for relief not to go into the road, so they go right up to the road but not into the road, so the Water and Sewer Committee give them,
Then they tie right
they
in.
tie right in at the road, so it stops them doing
So
the
they probably
open
have
of
to
a
put
road.
probably have to put a manhole right there or something.
Yeah.
So let's get back to, so with that kind of behind us, just obviously it's, we'll see what happens with the AG. We kind of want to focus now for the fall, and I believe tonight the select board is actually opening up the warrant, which puts us in kind of a situation now for the next 2 months in terms of what can we bring forward. And for a while, our plan was trying to look at sections 5, 6, 8, 9, and 17, and a lot of that also has to do with, as you start to look, especially with 5 and, in section 8, as you start to make changes, you notice that, alright, well, if I make a change here, that means I have to make a change to the other section because a portion of section 5 should be in section 8, or a portion of section 8 should be in section 9. So it's a lot to kind of go over tonight, so I want to just kind of take this meeting really to maybe go through really and just see where town council's asked a question, and if it's something that we can kind of provide an answer to, like here, in either or situation, and if we can answer that, and then if something kind of rises that we find to be a question, we bring back to her. Section 5, I know we got the table of use I'm not sure how we wanna tackle that, only because that could be, it's something that needs to get done, but it's also something that, you know, with, what's everyone's kind of thought on that? I mean, that's obviously something that, do we want to tie that in all with section 5, or treat that as its own separate initiative? Cause section 5, some of the changes are also really kind of similar to the previous sections, where we're just, it's more, cleanup and wording, whereas some section 5 stuff would be kind of larger scale. I don't know if anyone's has any thoughts on that.
So I was talking with you, I was thinking
Yeah.
about, especially section 5, because if we change, like, what the zoning use is, or we make it allowed as of right or special permit, it's one of those sections you don't want to put it through, like, obviously, at the last town meeting, we could put section 1 to 4 together and get it as one massive vote. Changing sections is good, but I feel like if we change sections of this table, you'll have to kind of vote every single one in individually, because if you vote one, because people could like 10 things and hate one, so vote all of them down in one. So that's where it kind of gets tricky, I think we're talking about today. I think that's where it's going to get tricky, we got to look at that and see how we want to move forward.
That's
Vote
an
that
excellent
in.
point, and I think that's kind of my only concern with trying to lump, alright, hey, we're gonna try to go 5 articles, and they're all gonna incorporate a section. That may not be feasible, just because,
Section 5 could be
Section
30
5 could be its own
votes on
thing.
its own.
and that, I mean, that's also a conversation with
And the
Yeah.
boards as well, see on the boards,
Yes.
public hearings.
planning board, select board as well, in terms of just, hey, do you really wanna have us show up with 30 zoning articles? I don't think that's really,
5 is going to be a lot of cases.
Right, yeah.
Um,
and that's
Well-
kind of realigns the scope of this, right? I mean, I talked to, talking to town council, talking to Carolyn before, I mean, it's kind of a 2-year process, and we're gonna be a year into it in August. And so if this is something we need to kind of break out further, so factoring what can get done for the fall, what can get done for the spring, and then possibly next fall. You know, with the last meeting being more or less definitions and table of contents.
Thinking off the top of my head, even if we delay it, I don't think we wanna delay it until the next fall. We
Yeah.
wanna see it in spring, so if it does have issues, you can react to come back in the fall and changes. Cause if we wait till the fall, we're,
Yeah.
we don't have any time to really come back and try to get it within our time frame of what we were looking at.
Yeah.
So why couldn't we do a, like we do the budget, do a hold? We can maybe go down through the whole thing, if anybody has a hold on any particular item in here, we could hold that and then discuss it. Then, you know, we could vote off everything that nobody has a hold on, we could vote that off and then go through it. I mean, as far, like, just real quick, as far as the table, I really didn't have a lot of issues with that. I mean, the only ones I had was the 3.5 times of residential on the commercial. I wanted to get that down, and I think, Jim, you said the last time too, about that maybe if we had a height restriction on it, that would kind of take care of that.
Yeah, that would knock it
But,
down as
but I
well.
mean, because, what was it, it was 3G1 was the residential, 3.5 times, but
Mhm.
right below it, and that was in the downtown business district, but every place else it was 2.0. So it
Oh, it's
only
just
could be
for
2
business.
times,
Business.
right, it could only be 2 times.
I wouldn't, perfectly honest, if we're gonna go into the nitty gritty, I wouldn't write that zoning like that at all. I would probably do something like a dwelling units per acre calculation, only because the way it's written right now is kind of unique to Walpole. So
Question for you, Jim. Of the split use ones we've been having, how many people have actually been coming in to do the commercial below it?
On the
I think you mentioned one,
You mean
MBTA.
mixed use?
huh?
You
In the
mean
mixed use,
mhm.
yeah. How many people are actually have anything in the lower level, which was designated for commercial?
So of all the ones that we've done in the last year, say Darnell's Murphy's one is still open, 95 West, we got them people and they just have no interest in filling it. So that's the problem too, is the owners aren't
Yeah,
interested. Glenwood, we got them a gym, there's still 2 spaces open, we had a restaurant or 2, so they're still looking into that, doing talks. And then the Bank of America, we actually have a guy who wants to buy the first floor as a restaurant, so we have someone for them.
The
So-
smaller locations seem more realistic though,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
was it
What kind of
nine,
restaurant?
was 931
He's
Main Street. That was just recently built.
Fusion
It was,
American.
Done on Murphy's
Something else.
building.
He has a restaurant in Newton already.
Yeah,
So,
that's a
breakfast
smaller
place,
rentable
must come in
space, so
from
that
a high-end
probably makes more
restaurant.
sense.
Yeah,
Go
and
there.
there's enough commercial in that area that it's gonna, if someone's at one place, they'll see it there, and it's gonna attract business. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be standing on its own like some of the others. but-
I almost would just, I mean,
No,
it's a good conversation, I think a conversation we need to have. I would almost just say that it really,
Get rid of-
allowing for mixed use is one thing, but having it tied to,
Residential.
or having the percentage, right? I mean, I think if you're gonna allow for residential or, if you allow for multifamily or mixed use, you basically leave it as such, but then you just dictate the density.
Yeah.
So that the density be probably equivalent to the MBTA, because we already have that as an example, and it
Right,
means.
I mean, I think that might work out good, but the thing is, like, I was told that some people have come in and inquired about that, and they looked at the MBTA thing, and they said, I think we'll stay with the conventional zoning, because
Yeah.
they can do more with it, and if, I'm just afraid if we don't do something like this sooner than later, we're gonna end up with more six-story buildings downtown,
No.
you know?
It's also, the CBD, I mean, this is the section that obviously we're talking about, that zoning district. It's a fairly small district, so I mean, that in terms of just land area wise, and so there's not a lot of areas left to redevelop, but at the same time, and I think that's a good point, in terms of, I don't know, I wouldn't wanna leave that particular thing hanging out there too long, because we've all identified at some point, it's,
Yeah.
you know, something that
Because-
should be better regulated.
Walpole Center is changing, so it's not Walpole Center anymore. The nature of this one story with tenements above it or whatever is disappearing with the big struck buildings, the multifamily buildings that are being built.
Mm.
We're losing the flavor of the town of Walpole. And I know people have talked
Yeah.
about that, yeah.
It's also zoning that's existed for over 30 years. And that's also something, I bring that up only because nothing's been done in decades, and now all of a sudden it's an issue because people are actually using it. And
Yes.
that's problematic, because now we're trying to,
People have discovered.
the horse is already out the barn, we're gonna
Yeah.
try to fix it now when it's
Yeah.
already been utilized. That being said, I mean, that's,
Is there much more space in that district than anyone could even build another complex of the size
oh yeah.
of a West?
There is.
I mean, there's
Just a
definitely
question
If you combine parcels.
combined
Yeah.
parcels, but then even
You
some
buy
existing.
several of the buildings and you combine with the one.
That makes
you know,
sense.
Six-story.
Like the
five-story.
biggest lot that's kind of left over around would be CVS Plaza,
I see.
where Conrad's
Yeah.
is, CVS and all, that's all one owner there, which is probably 4 acres. So,
But that's also split zone.
They do us a favor of doing something with that over there.
yeah. But that's it, I think we got to look at, especially said, it's been zoning for 30 years, and as much as people like it, again, I'll see it from, I'm an outsider, so I'll see it from an outside point of view. I've worked in other towns, so to see it is, Walpole's getting bigger. Like, I just had an article read there 2 weeks ago, where Walpole's in the top 15 towns of the state, just money wise and everything, because Boston is just gone insane right now at the moment, and they went to the highest level of this. They made their own stretch code version for all electric. It's crucified now. They're trying to turn office buildings into residential because no one's building there. They don't want to touch them because it made it impossible, and people can't afford it. You move it outside, you got Brookline. Unless you're a multi-millionaire, you ain't going there. Newton, same thing. Denham, you can't swing a cat over there. It's so small and expensive. Norwood, small town, it's got more population than it's half the size of Walpole, and it's pretty full.
Sorry. fully
Walpole has
developed.
potential,
Mhm.
and developers never really seen it, and they're coming this way because none of the zoning has changed. And I think we need to work with the CBD, but we also need to work in the GR districts as well, because I've always said it, our GR district, not being mean, suck. They don't let you build what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
The GR is meant to be multi-family,
Yeah.
And we tried to change it, and it didn't really,
and we got torn to
didn't
pieces.
really, it was not received well.
But that's it, if you don't do it, people are going to do what, because again, like I said at the beginning, when you think of zoning, you got to think of it from your point of view, and then from a developer, because they'll find every loophole they can to build.
Yeah.
And right now, GR doesn't give us anything. We don't have the numbers in 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Most of the GR are all single family homes with that 50-foot setback. That makes no sense if you have a if you're in GR and you have a single family here and a single family here, you're meant to keep 50 foot off of both of them. Dumbest thing ever, considering that the GR zone only needs 100 foot frontage to build. So you have a 100 foot lot, but you can't build in 100 feet of it.
Makes sense.
It's silly. The setbacks and buffers should be where the zoning district lines change.
Right.
Keep you a buffer from that. That's where it should be. Because you can't, I'm sorry, I don't know how
Go back
anybody-
to historically how it was built.
Yeah, and that's why I said, I don't know how someone can say you need a 50 foot buffer around every house when your frontage is 100 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. And that's what I think we need to work on the CBD, but we need to improve our GR zoning to make it what it's meant to be, which is multifamily. We've got to make
We
it
could
work.
maybe go all the way down, I mean, make some improvements,
Mhm.
call them improvements, some adjustments in every residential district.
Very much, because again,
Because if you just do GR, then people are be like, you're picking on the GR, what about residence A and what
Yeah,
about?
well, honestly,
Which
like,
is true, I
Yeah.
mean.
true, but like the whole thing is GR is residence A and B and rural are designed for single family homes.
Yeah,
GR is designed for multifamily, and you can't do multifamily.
yeah.
So it's kind of something I think, that's why we need to kind of tweak on it, because I pulled the records too. Our zoning size for lots and frontage hasn't changed since 1956,
Wow.
which is weird.
Yeah.
I've seen towns change and tweak things, we haven't changed in 56,
Yeah.
which is a lot. Like we've done small little setbacks and small things like that, but the primary, the lot size, that's where we've old zoning and subdivisions that were approved in the 60s, and
Mhm.
they still work
Wasn't there a
today.
study done, like, to look at, like, what's actually there versus zoning? Like, when, there was like the consultant Courtney or something,
Oh, was that when the town was doing the inclusionary zoning bylaw
Maybe.
the first time?
yeah,
That was,
Ashley.
Ashley's friend from.
Oh,
Courtney Starr.
Courtney, yeah.
but didn't she do like, what's actually there versus?
Yeah, I think she ran the numbers, that's where the GR came in, that
Yeah,
I
that
think
could
it
be
worked out
interesting
that
for
like,
us to look at.
Yeah,
like
we could bring our,
7% or
we did
something.
our own kind of look
Kind
at
of,
it just
yeah.
based on like data and with the size of.
GR.
Yeah.
I think we
Lots
found
of
like
those
7% of GR is only usable as GR zoning,
Yeah.
as of right, which is.
I'll put a note, I'll send that out to everybody just later, just to
Yeah.
have those maps. But that's, not to sidetrack, but I just, for today, I think it might be just easier, just because of the amount of things we gotta go through, is just take a look at the questions highlighted by town council. If we agree with it, if we don't agree with it, if we have a question on it, and then move forward. And then realistically, we're having a meeting with Carolyn tomorrow to kind of break down some of the questions and get a better idea of, maybe from her perspective, of how do we realistically do this for the fall with the warm being open right now, and to Jim's point about the table of use. It needs to be looked at, it could almost be its own law, just like the ADU discussion we all had, its own separate article discussion that could probably be moved to the spring because of the time that's needed to really kind of go through, break it down, and what needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think that would be good, I think we should spend the time and, discuss it and, make notes and
Determine
improve it
the
as we go, but
main
realistically, I think.
issues,
Yeah.
and then take our
Next town
time to
meeting.
go over the main issues.
Yeah, because honestly, to look and see how long, because if it's going to be a long article, I'd always try for the fall, because that's the one we don't have budgets in, we don't have much in, it's minor. So we can spend a lot more time with the people discussing it and town meeting talking, rather than, I think the ADU was the longest one at this town meeting, which took the longest. So I'd go for the bigger articles, aim for either this fall or next fall. So if we can get say 8, 9 and 17 in one other this fall, or we do 5 and 6 of this fall, something like that, to see how much votes we're gonna be going on it,
That's the thing is,
or do we do them all
like
falls?
17 is
Minor.
minor, but it's a change to section 5, because it's taking like I mentioned, there's almost like, there's parts of each section that once you take a look at it, you're like, all right, that actually needs to go to this section, then you realize you need, oh, well, if I do that, then I'm gonna move something over here,
Yeah,
and that's why we end up in the situation where you're
because 5 interlinks with so many others.
yeah, like there are a few areas in section 6 where it was noted by Carolyn that it was more of a use regulation, it wasn't a dimensional regulation, and it probably should be better than 5. I'm sorry, let me go to the.
Yeah, 17 is the
So you-
stadium parking.
Stadium parking, so this is an easy one to kind of at least talk about right now, just to kind of cross off, so let me
Article
just,
17,
yeah, I just want
It's
to kind
the
of show you
stadium
the
parking
section
in
of
South Wall.
5.
It's an overlay district.
So you're saying probably to do the other articles before we get to 5, because whatever we do in the other ones can change something in 5?
I think it's just because of the level, like 5 is probably the most complex with just
Well,
the table of use.
right, but the other articles, anything we do in those other articles, would that affect 5 very much?
It'd be depending, right? It'd be
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, the
That's
parking-
right. 'Cause
you're always gonna go back to
parking
5,
will
right?
obviously need to be
I know.
there.
That's
5 is
kind of-
gonna, 5 is gonna lead you to the other articles, right? So you almost have to, you almost should do the other ones first, although I'd like to get 5 out of the way.
Yeah.
But, it's almost like if we did the other ones first, and then we could see where it affects.
I think that's where, it seems terrible, but we need to look at, again, I know it's gonna be a huge article, 5 and 6, to see what they trigger down the line. Does it trigger the other sections, or can we contain
What's
it?
not tied in,
What's
right?
tied in,
Yeah,
that we can change something, it doesn't affect anything, and if it doesn't affect the other articles, then keep moving. It's only if it changes the articles major, so, like honestly, obviously the multifamily will tweak because it's in both section 5 and 6, but I think if we contain 5 and 6 together, because they play off each other a lot, height wise, zoning wise, and then the uses, they mix together pretty well. The parking count, we're keeping the parking numbers the same, so I don't think that will affect 5 and 6 that much. I think they should be,
So,
or would it?
let me bring up section 8. Actually, how about, let's do this right now though, so just so we can kind of like cross something off. Within section 5, there's a recommendation by Carolyn with, that some of these, use regulations are better situated as their own section and not lumped in with section 5. Stadium event overlay parking was a district that was passed a few years ago, I think it's in 2021. And so her recommendation was taking this out and essentially making it its own section, its own section 17. On the basis, does anyone have any thoughts about that, or are we all kind of understanding of where she's going?
I understand, and it'll probably be, and make it easy for the applicant maybe just to focus on one article rather than have to switch back and forth. right?
Yeah. With that, there were a few just kind of minor changes, both just additional language. Nothing that I thought was overly controversial. And I know Jim, you deal with this one a lot. So
Well, where is it currently? 5?
it's
It's in
currently
5I.
5I.
Okay.
If you'll forgive the newbie question, is a lot defined already somewhere in the?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Definitions,
So
5I, oh, there's
5I.
yeah, it's 5I, and she crosses it off in section 5, and basically, we have a new section 17. And that the changes that she's recommending are noted as what is now section 17. So that's almost just a change of just removing 5I and incorporating new section 17, with edits to it that I thought were, just, I didn't see that as an issue. Hold on. Make sure the language is right. Section. Actually, my one comment for her on this, she's removing. So where does everyone have section 17? Okay.
Yes.
So, one of the things we talked about is just like the, I don't wanna call it the cadence, the, section 11, point 1, point 2, point A or whatever. I think she's got it mixed up.
Mm.
Jim, so it's going, she's recommending removing the one and add and making it A, which, and it's the other way, it'd be like, it would be 17(1)A and so forth, not 17(A)(1). I know that's a minor thing, I'm just looking at the zoning bylaws right now, and
Well, yeah, because we talked about,
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way she
talked
has
about
all the
that,
other
but
ones.
We changed
Yes.
any of it.
Yeah.
well, we didn't wanna change it, we wanted to make it consistent right now. If we ever change it in the future, we do it as one thing, but
Yes.
we wanted to make sure that everything was the same, cause there's a few sections where it's not consistent.
Right.
This one here, I'm gonna write a note for myself, just cause I think she's got it mixed up.
Yeah.
Does anyone kinda see what I'm saying?
yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think she's going to A, whereas leaving it as one.
Yeah.
We've got currently, yeah.
And some other changes, so it would read, the purpose of the stadium event overlay district is to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the town by allowing for the safe and secure operation of stadium event parking lots. The stadium event parking lot is privately owned parking, is a privately owned parking lot that provides temporary park facilities for automobiles in conjunction with events at Gillette Stadium or its successor. That seems to be.
Well,
Yeah.
so she's including a definition in there, do we need to add definition to the title?
Where's
also?
the definition?
Well, it used to be section 3, and she's
Oh.
eliminated that, do we need to write, include definition in the top line, where the label, purpose, provisions, definition, so that people can identify it, or find it easier?
Oh, I see what you said, so stadium event parking defined, stadium event parking shall be defined as a temporary parking or in conjunction with the stadium, so it's almost,
I think she took 3 and put it into 1, basically.
yeah,
But do we need to reference that in the title? Purpose, provisions,
well, provisions, purpose and provisions,
is provisions sufficient to
Oh.
identify that?
purpose, provisions,
Because it's not so much provisions, it's purpose and definition, really.
definition, I'll make a note, so 17.
So I don't know if I missed this, but shouldn't these be all numbered, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, that's what you just said,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was reading it, yeah, and then, yeah, to match up the rest of the.
yeah, it just seems like she mixed it up,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
I-
yeah.
I think I was reading it, I thought I heard you saying it when I was reading it, so.
Yep, so she titled reference definitions.
So what would you do down at 3, well, where 3C is crossed out, and then right underneath it, it has like 1A, so.
So 3C is, well, I did,
Okay,
C
So
is
it just
not,
has requirements?
it would just be requirements, and then it would go to, let's say, 3 requirements, A, she has it marked 1, but just, you know.
yeah,
it's
Well,
the-
C would actually be 3, and then, would actually be number 3, right?
right.
It should be
Yeah,
3,
sure.
And
yeah,
the
Yeah.
two sections
And then-
below it would be,
it'd be
A
A,
and
same event
B.
parking lot may be allowed as an accessory
Right.
use to any
Yeah,
practice.
because if someone's an
I,
appeal that they
B,
need
I,
a section,
I,
so it'd be
something,
3A.
she's
Yeah.
got them
Yeah.
Mixed up,
So that's, yeah, that'd be,
out of
that's easy to
sequence
fix
there,
that.
yeah. So that's just really kind of like consolidating, right, moving the definition to the, kind of where it goes over the purpose and reducing some of the, kind of the redundant language there. She's a reference, so what is this? A couple of the, I guess, requirements that are recommended, no vehicle shall block or overhang the public way, which I'm assuming her reasoning, well, I don't wanna assume, but, well, because that's kind of, goes
You don't
without
wanna park
saying.
it.
But she moves it, she crosses out the A, but she moves it up to D. No spacious cell vehicle are located so that do not block and overhang the public way, so I think that's why she's crossed it
Oh,
out.
she's not highlighting that though,
Oh, it's back.
right, shouldn't that be, oh, I get it, alright, thanks Jim, so basically, those are removed, but the
She's
lettering is
removed.
changed.
Yeah, she's turned it back in.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me. So,
So the only thing I'd ask Jim is, have you had any issues with any of this language when you've given the permits or anything? That, something that you think needs to be changed or added?
No, honestly, it's the way I like. It's pretty strict because it's simple for us the way that the space, the size of the space is 166 square feet, because we're going off our actually Section 8 zoning because we take these as commercial lot. So the spaces has been 9 foot by 18 feet, 18, depending on how you park them. So we've been doing the limited site plan when they come in with the police, and that to make sure no one's either driving over sidewalks or leaving. Honestly, the only time is people wedging cars in where they shouldn't be, because again, trying to get people to explain that, yeah, you can fit 50 cars in your lot, because if you put bumper to bumper and you have a house party, you can do it. Now you're getting a license and your house becomes a commercial lot. So it's going to be like Stop and Shop. You have a designated parking spot. So that's where, over the last few years, we've been coming. No one's had issue with the zoning. They've been issue following the zoning, really.
So I don't know where those are removed on her recommendation. Let me bring up
I
the
think she's
zoning
moved
diagrams.
them back up.
But, because she's referenced the 166. Oh, no,
Yeah.
sorry, jeez, alright.
Yeah.
Alright, we're good, yeah.
Yeah, so no, the zoning's pretty simple on it, and it's worded nicely, and honestly, it's kind of basic, which I like. It literally says you have parking spaces, it's a commercial lot, these are the size. You have to do a limited site plan, and then you have to meet us on site where we walk through, we bring our wheel with us, we mark out the parking, make sure you've got emergency aisles that if anybody wants to leave at any time, they can leave, but the owner also has to make sure they can physically leave their house in emergency as well. So majority of people have been very, very good with it. We've had a few issues over the years, and then neighbours fight because Ed can park 40 cars, John can only park 7 cars, and he's mad at you because you're getting away with more than it's small minor things. Honestly, that's it. And then I think the last big concert was Kendrick Lamar,
Close enough to back.
which was on Monday night, and it was just, I left my house at 7:20 to go inspect. I didn't get home till 10 o'clock. So it took me an hour and a half to get down there. We had the weekend.
Was
I
that
got
open?
stuck in one.
No one went to see him at all.
No.
It wasn't great. He was on Tuesday and Wednesday night. I had no issues with the park. And Kendrick Lamar was Winter Street. Like when I came to Walpole, the traffic started at Stone Street. It was backed up to there. It took me an hour to get to Summer Street, and I just left my truck on the side of the road, parked it up, and walked the rest of the way because it was just, there was traffic there for 2 hours because it was right at rush hour on a Monday. It was just mayhem.
I know when they first started having concerts there, you didn't think about it, I automatically look from to one out, I go up to one.
Oh yeah.
I go up to one and I sit in traffic for half an hour, moving half a mile.
Mhm.
I said, okay, we don't do it this way anymore.
Yeah.
So the remainder of the edits that I see, so obviously that wasn't fully comprehending because of the mix of them a lot. So everything kind of looks good, right? So you're just basically changing a little bit of the formatting. And,
Yeah.
And
I don't think she
consolidating.
took really out much. You just
And the same thing here, the approval seems to be, the language that she's removed, she's better, she's more or less refining it and then adding it back in and removing the invalidity clause only because we talked about, we already have a master invalidity, can't say that word, clause, and so there's no need to include it within each use regulation.
Under the approval, she has the Board of Selectmen, just change that to Select Board.
Select board would be called.
In the term select board, did he capitalize the D or is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 separate words. Is the license, is it 1 year?
Yeah, it's renewed every year in March.
Is that, should we say anything in there, or?
No, so that's a general bylaw with all licensing.
Okay.
So like restaurant, liquor
So-
license, we can do
It's
these
just
as
1
a
year.
commercial license,
Okay.
so they have to renew every year.
Okay,
Lodging houses all fall under the same, under state regs, so it's an automatic.
okay.
So,
You don't see any need of adding that in there so the applicant will know that? ahead of
Well, no,
time?
so
When they apply for the license,
we actually, because
they tell them
so
that's
we
what-
bring it online when you apply. We give them we actually hand out a bit, it's a mixture of our information or zoning and the select board's information, so it states in that through the select board licensing, which is, we don't have to say over that, their general bylaws say you have to renew every year, so we hand out the package to the person that's applying for it, they know that, and then with our system online, they get sent out renewal letter, an email 2 months before, then they get sent out one a month, and then they get sent one like a week or two before to renew.
Should we rep-
If we wanted to make it 2 years, could we, or do you see any benefit?
The only reason I wouldn't say we can make it 2 years is because they also, once they pay the town, they also pay the state. So when you have a stadium, you have, I think Gillette pay like 700,000 for
Mhm.
parking to the state.
Okay,
Say Fenway is the same. We're considered a satellite parking, so satellite towns have to pay 400,000 a year to the state.
what?
Oh yeah. So what happens is everybody's happy with Walpole jumping on board because Foxborough, the state basically want 400,000.
Yeah.
If you paid or all of us paid, they want 400,000. So the more people park, the number goes down. So I believe this year it's like a one-time payment of $26-ish for each car they're parking for their license, and they renew it every year. So their license is the same, so we have to correspond with them. So we have to do every year.
Okay, okay.
So, was the question like,
Can we do it every 2 years?
or do we want to, do we include that in the approval process, or just we leave it off as part of kind of like its own?
I leave it off just because it's actually the license, we do the zoning on it, so you apply for it, but the license comes under the select board's qualifications
Okay.
and their licensing, so it's in their side. So I could say every 2 years, the zoning board or the select board will step in and go, it's every year,
Okay.
because it's
Wow.
under their regs.
So like Carolyn had said with a number of other things, don't put the language of
Someone
the
else.
bylaw in there, because when the state changes something, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
change, we're
yeah.
not gonna be in.
Yeah,
So just maybe reference it, but not
yeah,
reference the article or whatever, but
yeah,
don't
because
write.
again, we have to match the
Put the
state,
writing
so
in there.
the
Yeah.
state usually send it out with our renewals to say you're paying them. If we do it every 2 or 3 years, which I say it's a good point, they'll keep sending out going, where's our money?
Yeah, yeah.
So where does that 400,000 come from? The Parkers?
All the parkers. So,
And- But
say-
they cover everything, the town's not kicking in.
Oh, we're not touching, no, so say if you have 10 cars, you're paying the town $70 for the year, and you're paying the state, right now averaging $260 for the year. And then you're making 400 the first night, so your first night's paying your bills, and the other concerts and games are all gravy.
Okay.
So, this one on the basis of, or take it out of 5,
Mhm.
have it be its own section. We've had a few questions I can ask Carolyn. Other than that, any other concerns with some of the changes?
Good.
Makes sense? Alright, we can cross that off. Maybe, I'm trying to think. Section 9 was, not to jump around, but I know like section 9 was something we discussed a few times already. I don't know if it makes sense to just kind of finish that up. If everyone all right, we kind of move to that one.
This one here.
So I think there's still a few questions on this one. And section 9 is the one where there's that whole reference to like non-conforming off-site parking, which why we wanted to remove that and bring it to the parking regulations, but then the language of it didn't really make sense. So, one thing I wanna kinda call out, so this is page 2. I think Sarah, you were the one that brought this up. She didn't, I thought we discussed this when she was in, she was in to talk about this. There was the whole, non-conforming resulting from public action and whether or not that should be government taking. She didn't respond to that, so I'm just gonna clarify that with tomorrow. I noticed that was something that she didn't address, that's 9.
So that's like if you eminent domain a piece of a lot and suddenly you're not conforming by setback.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. It's more of a, kind of a wording, than more of a
Yeah,
wording.
yeah. I've seen government taking used before, but
And that's, I think, what we thought it would be. But government action doesn't matter, and I think we brought that up with our town council the last time. I'm not sure why she didn't correct it, but I'll just get clarity there. John, this is, well, other John Fowler.
Jones.
So remember we had a question about special permits and variance uses and if there was a way to kind of memorialize that, so the language
Yeah.
wasn't lost, so she's moved that to section 1, objectives and applicability, so 9.1. This is new language, I think I'm just gonna highlight that, so purpose of bylaws to carry out or clarify the protections afforded to lawful non-conforming structures and uses under general law, chapter 48, section 6, or a use or structure which is not otherwise permitted by right and does not comply with the bylaw, but is allowed by a variance or special permit is not a, no, sorry. What is allowed by a special, variance special permit is not a non-conforming use or structure, it is not entitled to the treatment afforded by this article. So, that was kind of another thing that she said to take it out because it was self-explanatory, but we also thought to kind of have that language put in there a little bit just to kind of reference it, because not everyone realizes that.
Is she worried it creates legal ambiguity or just?
I think it was, yeah, I think, so part of the kind of the theme, especially from the last time we went about this, was a lot of the language was just restating state law instead of just referencing state law, and in some situations, state law changes, and then we had the law written out verbatim, and it was no longer, accurate. So going to that, referencing the section as opposed to the actual wording, helped that.
Yeah, and I think the other point too was on the variance and special permit, you could get a variance to go into a setback. So that allows you, so the variance allows you to do that building. If anybody looked at it from the outside, it looks like it's a non-conforming building.
Yeah.
So you could go, well, as a non-conforming building, I want relief. But it's not a non-conforming building because you got the variance to go into that setback.
That makes sense.
So you could do a single floor into a setback, and you go, well, I'm going to go straight up.
Yeah.
Non-conforming structure says you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But zoning says, mass zoning says, under section 6 says, no, you can't, because you got the variance for the first floor.
Right.
If you want to go to the second floor, you'd need another variance.
That makes sense.
So that's just to make sure,
Yeah.
we do our job and check if something's non-conforming due to variance or a special permit. That's a different circumstance, so you can't use this section of non-conformity to get away with something.
And so we had it as this section, subsection 9.2, actually, is it 9.2, 9.2C, or what was 9.2C, so rather than restating that language, but not losing it, just kind of have a little bit of a reference within the objective.
That makes sense.
So try to cut down on some of the wording.
Is that a common confusion that comes up when people are making applications?
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's done on purpose too.
Sure.
Because
I'm just being nice in my framing of the question.
yeah, no, some people generally, because again, you buy a house tomorrow for something I did.
Right.
Most homeowners don't look into the history.
Right.
So that's why we actually got most of the, Patrick and Lauren helped us, we took most of the zoning decisions and tied them to the address. So when we get something, because you're meant to tick off if you're applying for something, if there ever was a zoning decision on it.
Sure.
Most homeowners do not know that.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to look into it. So again, 95% of people are genuine, some people
Makes sense.
try
Interesting.
and skirt it and they use it. Because again,
Yeah.
if I'm new, trust me, when I came here and I took over the commissioner's job, there was a few people that came in going, hey, we're going to do this. Well, we have a file down there and it was already
Yeah.
decided by a predecessor.
Right.
We've some cases that 3 predecessors have decided on it and they still come in trying. Because again, it does happen in towns. Falmouth just had a famous one of the guy built a $600,000 home, was never allowed to do it,
Yeah.
and they drove a bulldozer through and pancaked it.
Oh, jeez.
But he said there was no case from the zoning board. The zoning board had a case that you couldn't build on the lot. And there's a new commissioner, he built away, and then the zoning board came back and hey, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
Went to court, but the beautiful house got pancaked.
Jeez.
So that's where we kind of got to cover, and that's where that section 6 that Patrick pointed out comes into play. That does with what's permitted, what's zoned, what's variances, what stages, and what, to the point, what was put up illegally
Right.
actually has a shelf life too, that you can keep it even if it was done illegally. But you can't use what chapter 9 is to do something that, again, with special permit and variance. You can't use this section to help you.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
So just highlighting this section here. So- Because, so as we kind of move down, so there's a few sections that are kind of restated. This one was,
Which version are you looking at on the screen there? Like current
This is
or?
current.
This the current.
yeah,
That's
Section
the,
9?
the third page.
So bottom of the third page.
No,
There you go, right there.
I'm not using both sides, okay.
so this comment we kind of clarified it the last time, so construction operations under a building or special permit shall conform to any subsequent amendment of the zoning bylaw unless the use or construction is commenced within a period of not more than 12 months after the issuance of the permit and in cases involving construction, unless such construction is continued through to completion as continuously and as expeditiously as is reasonable. Yeah, so that's a lot of words, but I think that's basically a more legal summary of what we already had in, for section B. I don't know if that rings a bell. Her question to us is whether or not we wanted to have the 12-month time frame, or if we wanted to shorten it and include it. I think we discussed last time keeping it at the 12. You know, this is, I don't have any more really kind of questions for this, just because I think we've discussed it before. So I'm just gonna kind of leave that as is. The comment underneath it, though, basically references moving this section that I highlighted to section 6. So at the time when she provided this on May 2nd, section 6 wasn't completed yet, and so it is completed, so, and I'm gonna get, I'm just writing this for myself to kind of discuss with her. I think this section probably could be removed, because if we want to move it to section 6, so the dimensional regulations. And not to, this is where it gets kind of confusing, right? Because now we're all of a sudden we're moving things about, and now if we do that, then we have to look at something else at the same time. So if we go forward with amendments to section 6, let's go forward with amendments to this, keeping in section 6 should probably be at the same time. Just wanna kinda highlight that one. So, cause there should be a new paragraph 8 as opposed to general provisions. This is section 9.2, general provisions, subsection G. Recommended moving this to be 9.8 rather than 9.2G. We were in agreement with that. I had no other really concerns there.
And that, if you remove that E and put it in section 6, where is it going?
So it's going, that's a good question, right? So, section 6.
Goes to C there. That one you
Goes to C, yeah, so. Hold on, let's just
Just under the basic requirements, that one?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think her thinking was because section 9 is doing non-conforming,
Yeah,
that paragraph is saying you can't make something non-conforming, so it's
Yeah.
not more a relief from that, it's just telling you which
Yeah.
section 6 would be that the basic requirements.
her comment here says section 5, it should say section 9, so,
Okay.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So, kind of, this is the fun, trying to figure this all.
I think it fits in better in section 6, because that's where you go to the use table. And if
Mhm.
you have an existing building that matches and you wanted to chop off a piece of land, that's where you cause the trouble, not so
Mhm.
much in the non-conformity.
So, I guess back on section 9, so we discussed moving section 9.2G to be its own section 9.8, we're all in agreement that, sure, that sounds fine. There's just some minor kind of wordsmithing
I had
changes.
something on page 1 I wanted to,
On 4?
on page 1, the title.
Which
Lawful
section?
road control, yeah, right, that one, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
you reference uses structures, but you don't have lots.
Lawful use of structures.
Now, maybe that's because there is no lawful, non-conforming lot.
So that's where it gets, so technically there's no
I
longer,
know technically.
there's
the
no
state
lawful
law-
anything with non-conforming,
Yeah.
but you're allowed to keep it, so that's the, I think I'm going, only guessing the reason she left it out is,
Put a note on that though.
I'm not too sure she left it out, but yeah, no, that would be, lots would be a good add to it.
So, they should bring that up. I think that's because she didn't like our use of non-conforming situations.
Yeah.
Which was a kind of a way of being like, too many words.
Yeah, so we're gonna have
We
uses.
got a
Yeah.
situation here.
Well, there are 3 issues, so
Yeah.
just referencing all 3 identifies the ones that could be possible, yeah.
Non-conforming situation, non-complying situation, and non-compliant structures 10 years or older is what she.
I wonder if the general law cited just provides a definition for that, in which case you could remove the words.
Well, the state
Yeah.
obviously allows a smaller lot than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask that question. I also asked a question too.
And
'Cause I-
something old enough, even though it's substandard for us now, it was grandfathered because it was there when we adopted the zoning laws.
Yeah.
The little 5,000 square foot lots that are hiding around town.
So here's her explanation to, so as the article was set up, it's also a required change to section 14 of the definitions to remove those terms, non-conforming situations. And to simplify the zoning bylaw and to be consistent with general 48, chapter 48, the use and term non-conforming use or structure, which uses the term non-conforming use or structure. I think that's, I guess to answer your question, John, that's why 9
Why
goes
should we do it?
non-conforming use and structures, not use structures and lots.
Yeah, because
So-
usually it's the use and the structure changes, because a non-conforming lot, you can't alter a non-conforming lot, it's, because even if you make the lot bigger, it's still not non-conforming till you make it a conforming lot. The houses, the structures, the use have a lot more protection than a non-conforming lot. The only conforming lots that are protected are prior to 56,
Yeah,
and they're few and far between there.
so this is
Just gonna add a
local.
question to
It's
whether or not we need to,
Pre-56.
Yeah,
yeah, whether we need to
better
actually
than
define that.
the new merger law plays around with that kind of,
Oh, boy.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fun one.
So a few questions there just to kind of clarify from her. This is highlighted and I don't know why exactly. So this, there's another note. Non-conforming 1.2 family. Looks to just be more wordsmithing. I don't see anything that really stands out here. There's inclusion of some additional language though after that. So this is for non-conforming structures rather than buildings, and it's broken down for 1 and 2 family.
I have a note there on that highlighted one.
Yeah.
That like the last sentence seems subjective and maybe subject to personality, will not be substantially more detrimental
Mm-hmm.
to the neighborhood than the existing,
Mm-hmm.
That is
based on
kinda-
what?
Yeah.
So that's state law, and where it falls in zoning, you have to show it's not more detrimental to the neighbourhood than, so neighbourhood is considered under a zoning law 300 feet, it's anything within 300 feet. So you have to show that you're not more detrimental, that if you have a ranch, 50,000 square foot house, a ranch, something like that that stands out as detrimental to the neighbourhood as a whole. So usually when you're looking at something, you look at the neighbourhood around it. That was brought in a good few years ago. One of the main reasons was you had someone in South Walpole, just to take an example, that walked their dog down at Bird Park and saw something they didn't like and filed a complaint against it. And they were like, well, I don't like it, but you live at the whole end of town 5 miles away, why are you
Yeah.
complaining?
Well,
So-
I'm just,
Should be
I'm
more
like,
detrimental to the
Neighborhood.
zoning of the neighborhood?
No, it just
No.
says neighbor, the state law says
I
neighbor,
mean,
that
what
word
if
is
the
direct.
ZBA is like, oh, you're adding, an addition on, and I think it should be in the back, not in the front.
That's a personal, that's where I always say, it's a
They
personal
feel it's
preference.
detrimental.
They'd have to show it, so would they show all the houses, they actually have to,
Oh.
cause if I'm going to appeal them, and I go to you, okay, why do you want my addition in the back, when my neighbours have them all in the front, and you're like, well, they look ugly, so I want to start moving forward, make them all look pretty.
We've had
That
this, so
doesn't-
like, it always comes up, cause I think the
Mhm.
zoning board thinks, oh, should, well, not, sometimes we're like, well, what's the difference between this and a variance, right?
Yeah.
And so, to Jim's point, so if somebody, I'm trying to think of an example, so if they're non-conforming to like the front setback, and they want to add like
A front porch or
a
something,
front
or-
porch or like a vestibule or entryway, if it's, not more detrimental to the neighborhood, well, if their neighbors also are non-conforming and they also have similar
porches.
structures,
It's
then
not gonna
it's not,
stand,
it's not gonna stand.
yeah, stand out.
So-
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out, like, if somebody's being unreasonable,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what, I think our job here is to make a book that like can't be easily abused, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With personalities and I don't like you and I feel like,
Yeah,
.
so that's what
Um,
Even
this,
if we did do that, it still would be,
It's
so.
still-
Well, I know, but to the best of our ability.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just saw
Though,
that
is the
more
word
detrimental, like, based on what?
Substantial.
If it's
Substantial.
defined in
Yeah.
state
That
law, then
is-
it's a.
yeah, it is,
maybe-
it's fine, cause that's what they said.
Substantial?
Okay.
It gives you
Substantially, yeah.
something to, so if
Now,
I denied
know
you, it gives you
at
something
one
to appeal
point
on.
I saw that.
Oh, my neighbours have it.
And the
So
only
even,
place we
even
had to
some
look something
towns,
up
we
was
have it
a
to a
dictionary.
small degree.
I don't think that's defined.
Say if you were to build a new house in a
What
twin
is
block, and you were
considered
kicked back
State law.
substantially?
Yeah.
but all your
What
neighbours
is
had their
considered
houses at 20 feet
substantially-
setback. Some towns, and we have kind of small, but
Like,
we
okay,
let
I'm
you come
adding
forward
one
to
extra
keep you
window.
in line with
That's
the
not
neighbour, so it's a nice
substantially-
straight line, it looks like a nice, rather than house, massive driveway, house way back.
Mhm.
They actually make you, it's not a variance to break the front yard setback, they actually allow it, because
Okay.
they want you to keep that dimensional look, so that's where that, not more detrimental.
Okay, I
I
just,
think
it sounded
It's one of those things
But
that
if
makes
it's
it
defined,
subjective,
then
but
it's
it,
okay.
honestly, it is state law, and that's what, again, if you file a complaint on Lauren, and it's you two fighting, I'll go, that's between you two. But if I get calls from all the neighbours, then we're looking into it more, because now that's, see, even if they're in the, neighbours are in the wrong, but they all came together because they don't like you, we look at that as, is it detrimental to the neighbourhood? But, and you need ground to stand on.
Is it based on
Right.
case law, Jim, or is it defined? I was just gonna ask her.
Both.
Okay.
I just wanna get to the point where we don't have to like, take up your time with the complaints and
Yeah.
the neighbor's mad, like, if it's just there.
Yeah, that will never, that's 60% of my job, 70%.
Well, okay,
I
yes.
think I made that example last time I talked, years ago, we did a job in Riverside Place, and the house we were actually working on had the proper setback, but everybody else was
Forward.
like 10 or 15 feet forward.
Mm.
So you and the zoning board to get the variance, and they allowed him to be in,
Yeah.
in
In line.
conformity with the
Yeah.
rest of the
Yeah.
neighborhood, so it was almost a straight line.
Because that's where, so that's where it is like detrimental to the neighbourhood is, that's a valid point, you go, if I didn't like and I appealed, your defence is, well, every other neighbour's out here, so we just made it match the neighbourhood. That's a defendable point.
Yeah.
If you said, just your points there going, we want in the back so it looks prettier,
Yeah,
that's not defendable. So a
Okay.
neighbour could either, because again, as you know, being on the boards, people will appeal stuff for no reason.
And appealing a denied special permit probably carries more weight than appealing a denied variance.
Yeah.
So, if they make a judgment like
Yeah.
that, then they have a
Variance
higher
is
chance
not
of
so.
winning that.
Yeah, because special permit's a consistency thing, and
Mhm.
variance is the one thing in zoning and planning and building, there is no consistency, because it's
right,
specifically
One
unique.
case.
So it doesn't matter if the neighbour down the road got it, it's unique to you.
yeah,
Special permits, you can't say, well, we allow them over here, we can allow you, you
Mhm.
have a standard.
yeah,
Variance is the one thing there should be no consistency in.
okay.
So, on to D, not conforming. She makes this comment, and this is a little bit, I wouldn't say, I don't know the best term here, but she referenced it for being within the, administration enforcement section, which we just did, which is not really I really don't wanna reopen something we just did, so I.
No, I also like, it kind of explains to me what
Yeah.
non-conforming buildings are, cause it, like it explain, it's in a non-conforming, cause if you take it out, I think, okay, you've a non-conforming building, but you don't know what not, you're going to another chapter to figure out what non-conforming building is.
Yeah.
I kinda like it having that in there for people who, they can see what the three things are: non-conforming building, non-conforming structure, and non-conforming lot.
Oh, like you talking about the heading, non-conforming building? Put
Yeah,
that in there,
so I know she wants to take them out to the enforcement, but,
so maybe just, she's got 1, 2 family building,
yeah.
can, shown with it.
1 or 2 families.
Whereas existing non-conforming structure, existing non-conforming structure, non-conforming building. I think her question is, she wants to add the use of structure is simply found to be in violation of the bylaw, building commissioner as the zoning enforcement officer may take appropriate legal action. I think this is what she's referencing, is that,
The 6 and 10 year stipulation,
yeah.
that's what she's going after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. I
Kind
can't-
of if we've done, I'm not too worried about it, would you?
No, and like I said, I don't, if it's not doing any harm, I really have to belabor it. I don't really wanna, I'm not
For the
in
heading.
the mood to open it and put
Yeah.
this in section 3. when
Yeah, I
think
don't
it's-
see an issue with it, because again, it does, again, 6 and 10 under section 3, but state law does fall under non-conformity, which you're in the non-conforming section, so I don't mind leaving it there, I don't see that as a big issue.
Similar thing, right? So,
So this is the 6-year law, and this is the 10-year law.
got it.
So they're the two differences.
Got it. Okay.
That's under section 6 of 40A. 6 and 7, actually, I think.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that in terms of both the changes as well as her recommendation to move, and whether or not we're okay with just kind of leaving this here?
Yeah, This third paragraph in the next page also, I guess, is related.
Just gonna keep it in section 9.
Yeah, I think so.
If you're okay with that, Jim.
Yeah, no, because I think it's talking about the allowance for non-conforming buildings, and
So it's not, yeah, maybe,
the 6 and 10 year makes it non-conforming actually technically conforming under the 6
it's not conforming, might as well keep it
in the
section.
non-conforming, yeah.
Okay. Moving on, so now non-conforming lots, this is where
It gets funny.
it gets a little messed up. Both these highlighted sections. So there's kind of duplicate language here that we talked about, and I think we've already made the decision that 9.5C, the way that's written, we preferred over, I think what was in 9.5A. So, this kind of duplicates, this. So, I don't see a problem with that. I think we'll do the table at this point. That was a question brought up by Phil, and, I like it, but I'm not sure. if it's a question that is sentence necessary. like she added this, I'm not sure why we have this. If she doesn't want it, so 9.5, conforming lots.
The last line, is it?
Yeah, so
If the land is subdivided, created, or otherwise transferred in violation hereof, no penalty.
why do we have this if she doesn't want it?
Which one?
9.5C, which
Yeah.
is doesn't exist currently. It's been shown as add, and this last sentence there seems more of a warning.
Am I reading right? Did it used to be 9.2E and then she moved here, but here it's duplicative? That seems to be what her comment says.
9.2E.
Is that,
Yeah, it might be. No, 9.2E was the one that is moved to section 6.
6? No existing garage.
This language in the 9.5C, so of our current zoning, there is no 9.5C. And it's been too long, I'm not sure why this language is added here, where this came from. Becomes the new 9.5C, it won't be if the current 9.5B is removed. Well, I mean, I guess if we look at it like this, and Jim, again, this is, I kind of turn to you just because this is kind of an enforcement thing, so we're, begins from if land to here.
Yeah. Subdivided, created, or otherwise transferred in violation.
Seems to be willing to property owner rather than zoning requirement.
Yeah, but one thing, you can move the subdivision if, even if the lots don't conform, because the subdivision doesn't need road control.
Yeah. I'm just gonna add a comment back, I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts, we just, should we just remove this,
Yeah, I think as you said, I think maybe we just put in a warning to people going, you can't go ahead without these things. Cause we do get people that come in with A&Rs going, here,
Yeah.
good to go, and you're like, yeah,
No,
doesn't
yeah.
work.
Don't work like that.
Are you linking that to the C?
What was that?
You're linking that to C?
Yeah, so 9.5C,
That's
I,
the last line.
this last line, so right now currently there is no 9.5C.
Right.
And really it's been well over a month since we met on this, I'm not sure why this language has been added, considering it looks like she added it, but then she also says it doesn't seem necessary, it seems more of a warning than a zoning requirement, so if we don't think we need this, or if it doesn't really kind of ring a bell, I'm not sure why we would need it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this one in the past, and it's never been until thoughtful. It doesn't make a lot of sense the way they're doing it. Sounds like you can't take a piece of land from this and make this one conforming. You still have the other one.
But you
that's
conform,
conforming.
yeah.
You can't screw one to get the other one fixed. You just combine the two.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It looks the same in section 6. Section 6. 1C or 6. When it says, if a lot is already non-conforming, shall not be changed unless it's, that looks similar, does it not?
What section?
Section 6.
6, the first, under basic requirements, C.
Oh, section 6.
Yeah, no, you're right, that is, so that was recommended to take there, or move to there. From,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's kinda says the same thing,
Yeah.
which I think it should be in 6, not here.
Yeah.
And also, back to what you asked, does anyone have a problem with that staying in?
Which
I
one?
kinda, the last one,
Non-conforming building, non-conforming.
yeah,
structure.
non-complying building,
Yep.
Mhm.
I would agree, I think it should be in the administration and enforcement section,
Mhm.
that's my opinion. If you keep it there, like you took out, or whatever, somebody has a strike through to non-complying building.
Mhm.
So if you take that out and you just start talking, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Anyway, I don't feel strongly about it, but it is like an enforcement issue and it kind of feels out of place here. But I won't make a big stink of it, but. If it's going to stay there, it needs some kind of heading, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Because she seems to be striking out building everywhere along it, so it would have to be non-compliant structure,
Right.
Which is
which is up there.
not conforming.
So she's joining that into 9.4.
Was it? 9 so this is part of 9.4,
Yeah.
so 9.4.
So maybe that's why she took out the non-conforming building. She just took it out of that,
Yeah,
leave it as
it's
non-conforming.
just,
Well,
so it's part of
The issue is
9.4.
between non-conforming and non-complying.
Right, this
That's
That's
the
not
it's,
complying.
intersection. One's talking
it's when
about
somebody builds
non-conforming.
something without a permit.
Yeah, whether
or-
something was allowed back then and is not allowed now, as something that was never allowed.
Right.
Shouldn't have been allowed to be
Well,
built
no,
in
so
the first
a
place.
non-compliant building falls under, so she's citing the 6-year stipulation and 10-year.
Yeah.
So that's actually a zoning a mass law requirement that, say if I build a addition on my house, or say if you have a single, easiest way I always tell people, you have a single family home, you put an apartment in the basement, and you get away with 10 years, under mass law 4866, it's a weird thing, you get to keep that, I can't make you take that apartment out, but you're never allowed to use it.
What?
Yeah, you get to keep the structure but not the use, because use is, the one thing that's not grandfathered is use.
Oh.
So under 10-year law, if you can get away with it, something that's illegal for 10 years, you get to keep it.
What if it's a living room? They won't let you put a couch in there?
Technically, no. We have it with decks. We tell people, yeah, you're allowed to keep the deck, but you can never use it.
Huh.
I'm never going out there and see if you're on the deck. I'm
Yeah,
not going to sit on a barbecue because you're on it. So
yeah.
it's more intent for if you created a single family into a two family.
Okay.
Right.
It's something like that. You can
In
drag the
law.
use of it. They have to
Yeah.
turn it back into single family if they want to use it. But they get
Okay.
after 10 years, you cannot make them take it out. The 6-year law is if you get a permit for it. So if you come in on a Monday and you want to put an apartment in your basement and I'm hungover, and I go, yeah, here's your permit, off you go. After 6 years, even if it's 100% illegal, you also get to keep it and you get to keep the use. Because I was dumb enough to give you the permit without realising I told you can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that falls under 48 section 6. So that's the non-complying, not non-conforming.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay.
So that's where the 10 and 6 play in, so it's slightly different.
Yeah.
Which would fall under enforcement. I'm guessing that's why she's my, I didn't see the non-complying, I thought it was non-conforming she crossed out. So that's why I'm guessing maybe she wants to move it to enforcement. Because non-conforming, you never can use these two things to get expansion and non-conforming. It'd fall under the same thing if you had a variance, you wouldn't be allowed to expand on it.
I know, I read it 3 or 4 times before I could find the difference, it was just
I think
Yeah,
it's
me
fine.
too.
permit and non-permit.
And I was like, I will
What
word
is-
word by
I go
word.
word by
Oh,
word.
okay.
Yeah.
The,
But
Section
Pat, you
two.
said you didn't wanna do that because we just passed section 2 last time, is that the deal? Or-
Well, that was it. Well, my apologies to
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought I done Mandela effect in my head. I thought that was non-conforming building, not non-complying.
Yeah,
So I wasn't paying
So,
attention. So that,
it
yeah, it
probably
could go.
should
That's
be.
why she's going for enforcement.
So adding it to section 3.
Because yeah, I can see now. Good spot. Because you can't get a relief for those two uses ever.
yeah,
Because even though, like, even with the 6-year law, you get to keep, but it's a non-conforming use.
So
You
you
can never
can't,
expand on it because you already won the lottery by getting it.
yeah,
You can't go get more relief on it. So yeah,
I
don't-
think until
You can't
such
use it.
time as we can move it to section 3, we wanna keep it here, cause it covers an area that still occasionally comes.
So maybe show non-compliant building.
yeah, but
Rather
Well,
than having it.
or isn't that? Did she mean to cross out the building and put in structure? Because she's doing
Oh,
that with
well,
all the
yeah,
buildings.
she's been changing.
All the building to structure, because
Yeah, so label it
Covers everything.
Non-conforming
non-compliant
structure.
structure.
yeah, 'cause that's the old rule of thumb is every building's a structure, but not every structure is a building. It could be a non-conforming wall you put up against your neighbour, 8-foot fence because you don't like them.
Mm.
No one's ever complained, so you get to keep it.
Alright. I'll talk to her about it, cause I don't wanna do something for the sake of not reopening it, but it just becomes problematic, all of a sudden
Yeah.
there's defined things, and I'm like, oh. Cause this is the hard part of doing all of this,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Is you're trying to find a way to make it digestible, but then you start to open up a can of worms, it's like an old house.
And we're getting to tough sections now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ugh. So I'll put a note to basically talk about that with her, so.
But did we adjust section 3?
Yeah,
Yes,
We did,
yep, that was part of
That was
it.
voted.
that's what we
One,
did
two,
last
three.
time?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Oh,
7,
Okay,
right?
and
So we're not-
11, right?
And 11, yeah, and
We're not gonna
ADUs.
leave non-complying up there? She has it crossed out, right?
No, so I mean, I put a note, I mean, if we change it to structure, so keep.
Yeah,
So
you wanna
keep
keep
it
it
as
non-compliant.
non-compliant
Because there is a
structure.
difference between non-conforming and non-compliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, I know, but she has it all
Oh,
crossed
okay.
out there, so you wanna keep it the difference, so
yeah.
you should leave the non-complying and then
Yeah,
cross out
you keep-
structure.
true.
Cross out building and structure, right?
Right,
Yeah, I think
right,
she
that's
might
what
have
we
meant to
want.
cross out building,
Right,
just
she
cut the
didn't,
two of them out.
right,
Because
so
you
you
want-
should leave non-complying
I was
Right,
and
thinking
and
my-
then
change-
replace building with structure.
Change to, well, do we,
Right.
in your note, you say non-compliant structure, just to make.
Oh, yeah.
I guess maybe, yeah.
I was thinking that should be its own separate section then, because this is non-conforming structure, so you have
Yeah,
the
well,
non-conforming
it
structure
should
and
be,
then you have non-conforming.
yeah, you're right.
So you can see that.
Instead
Right.
of 4, it should be 5, maybe, yeah.
Let's just put a pin in it. And
Although we have a 5, we'll have to
Non-com- yeah,
renumber it potentially.
yeah, I think it should be 9.5, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing, if you keep it, it's almost, you gotta move it down.
Yeah, cause it doesn't fit under 9.4. Non-conforming,
Subsection,
non-complying, yeah.
alright. Yeah, so, it makes sense to move now, or just keep it as, basically, it's its new subsection.
Yeah.
I think here we also talked about too.
that'll require renumbering some of the later ones.
Yeah, everything would have to go down one.
Up one here.
So, this one, I think we talked about, seems to already be covered, if we gotta remove it. I don't know why it's there to begin with, if she's the one that added it, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
you can ask on that.
Yeah. Non-conforming off-street parking,
Did we ever figure out what this was supposed to entail?
no. This is one where they call her, I don't know the history of it, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest.
I reached out to my 2 predecessors and
Yeah.
all of them were like,
We should ask Jack.
Never came up.
Jack might have some idea.
Yeah.
Because he's been,
Yeah, that would be
it's quite a while.
helpful, because there's language there that we all aren't really sure where it came from. So overall, if this exists, it would be taken out and moved to section 8.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's the credit, right?
Yeah.
An applicant seeking credit, what does that entail?
So I'm doing 9.5B. She's still the building in there and not structure.
9,
And she changed everything else to structure.
Oh, yeah. Non-conforming,
Lots.
lots, 9, 5.
9.5B, and then the first line, non-conforming building, right here.
I guess our
I mean,
fancy.
she has
Oh,
structure
yeah,
and everything
yeah.
else,
So-
right?
Good call, yeah, no, that's a good call.
So
well,
you
no,
think-
she might have left that in, cause again, on the section 10 and 6, those protections fall onto structures, buildings, the whole lot. In non-conforming buildings of 1 and 2 family, all the case law is strictly for 1 and 2 family, not the accessory structures. So it sticks to 1 and 2 family. So if you have a non-conforming 1 and 2 family, there's multiple case law that you can expand on it. But if you were to tie in non-conforming or conforming garage, non-conforming garage to a house, that kills the house. So I'm thinking that's why she left the building in there. Because the non-conformity under the 10 and 6 year falls to building, structures, everything.
But she calls it dwelling and then building and then everything else is structure, so
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
Make up your mind.
That's where it gets fun with zoning.
yeah.
Just by changing that one word can give you a whole get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Alright. We're all still confused with 9.6, which.
Actually, if we take out that section, save the numbering on a
Oh,
couple.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're gonna save word by going it somewhere else.
Consideration, must the new structure be reconstructed? Structure. This is the one, this right here, 9.8, was the section that was, I believe, in 9.2 that we wanted to move down, it was like 9.2G. I don't have any really comments for any of the wording, I don't know if anyone considered that.
Is there case law around it is apparent that the owner does not intend to resume the use?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So there's actually no one's tested the theory yet, but most of the case law goes that if it's been abandoned for 2 years, it's gone.
Okay.
So especially if it's a non-conforming use.
Yeah.
So if you had, say, a mom and pop had you often see in neighborhoods you have your own mechanic shop there,
Sure.
that goes away. COVID opened up a weird one where like restaurants and places that weren't allowed closed for COVID, and then they didn't start back up for another year or more, so they exceeded the 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's case law that says there's a difference between abandonment
Mm-hmm.
and not using it.
Oh, interesting.
So people say, well, we didn't abandon it, we just hadn't the money to start back up yet, we couldn't find staff.
Yeah.
So there is a tweak on that, but most laws go with the two years. But there is small cases out there where that have been approved that if you could prove, hey, I couldn't find staff,
Yeah.
so I actually couldn't open my restaurant for 3 years, but I had no intention of leaving it or
Yeah.
abandoning it. So then they're allowed to open back up again.
That makes sense. Yeah. And so that would be why 1 and 2 here wouldn't be duplicative.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guys backed up to 9.7, repair and reconstruction. I think our conversation from last time was adding this sentence. So the whole thing was, we wanted them to be more non-conforming. I'm sorry, we wanted them to be less non-conforming if it was going to be reconstructed from, during reconstruction or involuntary destruction. Her concern was must the new structure be constructed in the same footprint as the destroyed structure, or is the goal to ensure that the new structure is more compliant with the zoning where possible? I think the way it reads now So any non-conforming use or structure which is destroyed or damaged by explosion, collapse, fire, storm, natural disaster, or other catastrophic event, any of which is beyond the control of the owner, may be reconstructed provided there is no increase in the site coverage or gross floor area or the degree of nonconformity unless approved by special permit consistent with section 9.4, and provided that reconstruction is commenced within 2 years of such damage or construction. So I think this sentence was added to basically, I believe.
Yeah, because I believe the last discussion was if it say got burnt down and they had the potential, I think some of the people, I don't know if it was John or Ed asked, could you move it back in and make it conforming? And case law says, no, you can't, but they can't expand on it, so that fall under the special permit, which we allow for expansion of a non-conformity. But if they choose not to, they can go back to the same non-conformity that was there already.
Okay.
So you had a non-conforming building and a non-conforming lot, and the building was destroyed.
Mhm.
Say you wanted to move it a little bit, could you go to the zoning board and see if you could, say, get it off the property line? Like, for instance, my place in Norwood, it's crazy where I am, but I only have like 2 foot setback, 2 or 3 foot setback on the right side. And then I go right up to 2 to 3 feet of the house next door to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my building is actually non-conforming, but if I say it gets destroyed, would I be able to go to, like, say if it was in Walpole, would I be able to go to the zoning board and allow it to be more conforming if I got it off the property line? I mean, I can't even paint the side of the house, I had to get,
No, so
I had to
again,
get permission from the neighbors, you know,
Yeah.
to do anything, so it's,
so if say if it did collapse, and say you were 3 feet to your neighbour, and you decided, okay, I'm gonna move it back 5 feet, now you're making it less non-conforming, so you can do that as of right. It'd be different if someone had say a single bay garage and it was a foot in the setback and they go, well, we got the insurance money, I'm going to put a 2 bay garage on, now you're moving more into the setback, that would be a special permit through the zoning board.
right.
But if you want to make it less non-conforming, you are allowed to do that.
So I wouldn't have to
You'd
go to
still
the
be
zoning.
non-conforming though.
You're still being non-conforming, but you can't get a special permit to tell someone to move their building from, well, I'm only 3 feet, I'm going to move back 5 feet, which is better. You can do that as of right. You could actually take your building now, pancake it, and rebuild it 5 feet, and they can't not make you do it, a special permit. That's as of right.
So you would have to give the permit, I mean,
Oh.
or you could give the permit and it wouldn't have to go to zoning?
No, that'd be a straightforward permit. Because again, the non-conformity falls under, not if you're, so our zoning says if you exacerbate it, you have to come for a special permit. There's case law out there that says that you can actually exacerbate it as long as you don't create anything new. So I think the last case was Brooklyn v. Bialta. The gentleman put dormers on his house that was up to his neighbour. His neighbour appealed them, and they were like, no, you're still in the footprint, you're going straight up. So I think I used the point for Westwood have it that if you go to put a second floor on, your house is 3 foot in, the second floor is a step back 3 feet. Actually,
Right.
case law says, no, you don't. The court even said not only can you get a permit, you shall be issued a permit.
Oh, interesting.
Because you're not creating it by going straight up, you have created no new violation.
Well, see, I thought you would, because I would consider it because you have more footage in the non-conforming,
Right.
but
Yes.
it's not.
No, you can do that. And you could even go more into it. Like you go for a special permit here and the board could say, no, you're going too close, because that's where they look at the detrimental to the neighbourhood. Go, well, no one else in the neighbourhood is that close. But if they could, you could technically go to the state and appeal it to land court. And it's a 50-50 size where they go, because again, state law in all the cases state, as long as you're not increasing or detrimental to the neighbour, not increasing, my apologies, you're not creating a new non-conformity, or you're not being detrimental to the neighbourhood, you actually can do it. Most towns go the way we have it, so that's why, I don't know if Westwood has changed over the years, but I remember doing a house over here years ago, and they made us step back. You actually don't have, you could appeal that board to state, and you would get it under Bialta, you would be, again, it literally says in it, you shall be issued a permit. That's how, because that's the gentleman took it all the way to the SJC, to the top court, and he said, well, and they said that he wanted to confirm, and they were like, yes, he can do it, and not only that, he should be issued a permit.
So, for right now, for section 9, I've got a few questions marked up, we've got a few questions for 17. Overall, though, I think we're good to kind of move on from this section. right?
Mhm.
Like, 9.6 is just gonna be its own kind of mess that we will have to figure out. So, I'm just gonna close this one. So which one should we kind of move on to now? I mean, just the time we have,
Well,
section.
on section 8, it's not so much changes within 8, it's how we link it to 5. Is that correct? Probably the most important one.
Which one, sorry, Joe?
8, the parking.
The parking.
Because most of the calculations and everything, the body of it is
Yeah.
gonna stay pretty much the same probably. It's how we link it to 5. So we could probably look at 8.
Well, yeah, so she did reference, I think the first time she sent it, she was getting rid of the parking.
On the
code.
right hand side, we said
And
no to it.
cause this is what all this is, right? This is all, we don't need to review this now, because what we're gonna have is there is, sorry, one moment. Where is 5? Alright, sorry. Within the, of course, Microsoft Word is great, so the formatting looks nuts. See the asterisk, so it's just gonna have you as a footnote. I mean, we can maybe change how exactly that footnote looks, but the parking requirements associated with the accessory uses, well, or primary uses, see section 8.
Yeah.
Just do that rather than removing the parking code from section 5 and then now having
Yeah.
its own, because that, it's
Now,
almost.
is that on each page, or is it just?
Yeah, no, it's each,
Each page?
Yeah,
let's see.
probably
No.
not. So it's like the asterisks,
it's
there's
like-
asterisks on it, but they all appear on the last page of
Like
the
a,
park.
like a footnote.
Okay, I'm
Footnote,
just
yeah.
curious, I saw it on one, but that didn't look like it was the last page, so.
Yeah, so Caroline was originally gonna move it, and then myself and Patrick talked, and we came to the conclusion that, again, if you go for a use, say for outdoor dining, you know it's falling under 6, so you go to table in 8 to know how the parking count is for 4 table or 4 chairs equal 1 parking space, if you're doing a bench.
And how's the
such
best
things.
way to like basically so they can
Yeah.
communicate to like what is 6, what does that mean? And so
Because if they take it out, there's no way of, in chapter 6, you'd have to write a whole 10 pages of all the uses again tied back
You
to
just-
the parking
Actually,
count.
yeah.
you're just doubling
go
what you're
insane.
doing.
Yeah, I lose the rest of my hair.
So this seems to be a lot. I mean, it's fine. It's like in table of use or dimensional regulations. We always have footnotes here and there to be further explained. So same thing, just basically reference going to section 8 to review the parking regs. Let's start with let's go back to section 8 right now. So just because we clarified that all of this where I'm at is not no need to review for right now for section 8. So we're right here. Some of the changes here, again, some of these are again some wordsmithing stuff, and removing and changing some of the labeling to be consistent. So obviously, if we were to do this change, you'd have to make sure that something like this. I'm just highlighting like it's referencing the table of use. If the table of use changes along with section 8, then you can make this change. But if it doesn't, if they're not at the same town meeting, then you would leave
Leave that.
that the same,
Yeah.
just to kind of highlight that. I don't know if we want to go with the nitty gritty of reviewing the parking requirements with this phase, or if we want to just think about removing inconsistencies, and this is just this is the big kind of question, right? So, my only thing is like the residential parking as it relates to like multifamily, and we tried to change that before, but make it based on bedroom count. It didn't pass. I still think it's the better way to go, but that's,
But within the MBTA, it's different,
It's different
right?
within the MBTA, it's 1.5.
And is that reflected in the parking
It's not
section?
reflecting within parking, it's reflected in
The
its
MBTA
own,
zone.
the MBTA
Okay,
zone,
so
yeah, it's its own.
okay.
use.
Standalone.
Okay, and we don't need to tie it back to 8?
No.
No,
It's very similar
it's-
to the ADU. The ADU is you have to have 1 parking space for the ADU.
Okay.
That falls under regulations, so we don't have to tie it back specifically to this.
It's kind of like, in some situations, and it really just it can be opinion too, but like, it's certain use regulation may have its own definitions assigned to it that are really kind of unique to what that use is, and if you
Mhm.
just put them in the definition section, it doesn't really, it kind of stands out, it doesn't really work.
if we are going to make changes to section 8,
Yep.
I think we should look once again at, the parking and maybe there's an excessive amount
Yeah,
needed for residential.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
We at least
it's
propose
interesting,
it.
right? Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah, we've always said this, cause we've always argued how low, because again, if you're CBD, if you're commercial, you don't need any parking.
Yeah,
The whole intent of why MBTA zoning was brought in was to get people to use the train, but our parking is excessive.
right.
But then, so which limits, and that's why people are trying to go with the taller, like again, Western Spring is a perfect example, they're putting a 2-story parking garage. We could
Are
have
they
easily
really?
lost an entire
Wow.
floor off of that if we reduced the parking count.
what was this?
Western Spring,
They're putting in a parking garage?
as part of the,
It's
yeah,
part of the
the
development.
development.
There's a whole
Really?
level of
Yeah.
parking.
That's so expensive.
So their request is, so they have 95
Yeah.
units, they need 180 parking spots.
Wow.
Which
Some
is
is outside, some of it's inside.
inside, yeah, which is, they're using the land pretty well, because they're Spring and West have like a, roughly a 14, it's
Yeah.
deceiving, it's a 14-foot difference there.
Yeah.
So they are using it perfectly, because the height of a garage is 13.5 feet, so
uh-huh.
Spring Street drive in straight, and West Street drive in straight, but West Street's actually parking on the roof. Spring Street's parking on the ground.
Oh, wow.
So it's deceiving, but if you live behind it, you got a 2-story parking garage. And the other funny thing that me and Patrick have talked about is every building in town has gone for a waiver for parking, and they've all received it.
Yeah, and they
So-
didn't ask for relief? Or they did and they?
They didn't want it because they're kind of angry at certain things that were done to them, so they
Okay.
came
So-
out swinging and.
When we brought this
That's what it was
forward, to kind of go back, so I'm highlighting only,
Mhm.
you know, where we're concerned with, you know, the parking regulations not really matching up, right? So for
Yeah.
single family, having it as 2, you know, I think that's fine, but in most situations, like, you know, as planning board would know, you know, doing like a subdivision, you're really
Yeah.
looking at residential parking for each unit,
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah,
doesn't come up as much, but this is the section when we first brought it forward about adding essentially a 1A, and the 1A was the, that whole big breakdown based upon bedroom count.
right.
I don't know, that was the way of doing it, that was the way we recommended it before, I'm not sure if that's, if there's a better
Yeah,
way
there
to
should
fit that
be
in there,
A
but,
variation from the standard.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, I mean, that's,
Oh, I see.
Because there is no
That's-
building in town that has the 2.
No, the
Like
one,
West Street is 1.3,
2 parking spaces
Uh,
for each unit.
Liberty
Liberty.
Station,
Okay.
I believe is 1.4, and I believe Gilmore's is approved with 1.25.
95
something
West is
like this,
also-
like
Southwest is, I think,
Something.
1.2 or 3.
Yeah,
so this is the multifamily, which is worded funny, but also the problem with this is, again, now we're bouncing around, right? We're just
Yeah.
looking at section 8, now we're back to section 5, so I don't wanna confuse anybody, but this is another one too, like if you're to make a change, you would reflect that, and, in there, probably even with 3-family as well.
Its own section or number.
Hmm?
Just for multifamily have its own, like, they use it 1A or B.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't need to go into this right now, but that's a whole nother. Let's say for the sake of just trying to kind of like put something out there is, you know, I'll highlight this. And. Just to kind of bring that up. That might be a change that, again, if you add it to section 8, now do we also need to make sure we make the change to section 5? That is, you know, that's fine, but I'll highlight that there, because I think that's one thing we can understand. This breakdown, I don't have a big issue with this, I don't think it's overly excessive. I know that's always the concern, is that you're adding too much parking or you're adding too little. And you could argue, obviously, that was probably too much for multifamily, but in terms of other uses, I'm not overly, I don't know, I haven't got a lot of feedback saying it's too much. Actually, the one with, well,
I'm thinking of like the car barn.
Mm-hmm.
But the car barn was also how it was designated. It probably could have fit under, if the parking code was 6 for that use, it probably,
Yeah, so that's, so, yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say, so the car barn, for anyone familiar, I know John, you know, but like, that was essentially it's a parking garage for people that wanna store their car for long-term storage. So say you go to Florida and you wanna have your nice car, you know, in a fancy garage for whatever reason, you know, you park it there, they take care of it, you know, they maintain it for you, and then you get it later. But it's not a traditional parking garage, and the staff that go to something like that is minimal.
So they fell under number 5 here, which for the size of the building,
Oh.
1 per 1,000, they have a 30,000 square foot building, they need 30 parking spaces.
That will never be
They've
used.
got 3
Right.
employees,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And then when the people come and pick their car up,
Yeah,
you got 4 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So they could have gone for a waiver, they didn't bother, and we said it would pass easily. But something like that is they could put a lot more green space, take a lot of the,
Yeah,
use it
accessible.
nicely, for
It's
something
also a
like that.
unique use, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
what it was fell under, I think is that fine to keep that at 5, but
Yeah.
something like that, because it's
Within
such a,
Or if we get something that gives them an exception, because then they were told, yeah, you can go for the special permit, they were like, yeah, we're not gonna waste the time, we'll just pave it. Because they just saw that as an easier way, rather than delaying the project.
yeah.
Do we find a way around it that if it's a unique use, so say if I build a warehouse for storage, and there's only 2 people working there, but it's a 50,000 foot square warehouse, I need 100 parking spaces, or sorry, 50 parking spaces,
Or-
I've got 2 guys, do we have an
Maybe-
exception?
This is kind of going in the weeds a little bit, but be more or less kind of a waiver of site plan review, as opposed to having to be a special permit for reduction,
For unique uses or something, make it part of the site plan?
or just parking in general. If it's,
Yeah.
if you're doing new construction and it's going through site plan review, can you have the parking requirements be
Get relief
handled
from
as a
the
wa-
planning
yeah,
board.
relief from the
Probably
planning board as a
so.
waiver.
Yeah.
That might be better, because obviously,
Ask, I'll have to look through the regs to see if it's something that's
Yeah.
referenced in site plan. And if it's a requirement there,
Yeah.
that references back to this,
Yeah.
and they should be able to ask for a waiver for it, I would think, yeah.
yeah, and that would probably be once you get to section 13,
Yeah.
not that, again, we're jumping around, but that's something to think about too, is if
Yeah.
that might be,
Cause you want to
like
change it
parking being
to
handled as a waiver as opposed to.
a
special
relief more than a waiver, cause we
Right.
have the waiver for parking right now, which is through the zoning board. If we can
It's
put it as a,
permit process.
yeah, but if we can put it in as, to your point, not a waiver, but relief from the parking,
Well, kind of
Through
similar
the
to how
planning
like
board.
the buffer's done.
the buffer,
The
yeah.
buffer, right, the buffer, you have to require the buffer if you have a, a commercial use next to residential use, but the planning board handles that as like, essentially a facet of site plan review.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you can
Give
give
relief.
relief from that, you don't have to get a special permit to relief from the buffer.
mhm.
yeah, cause you done it with,
Yeah, I
big
think
cars.
buffers do require special permit if you go away from them.
yeah, but when you're going through site plan, you're applying for 2 of them at the same time,
Yeah.
so it makes
Yeah,
it
it's-
easier to go that way.
Right,
So we
right.
could do something like that, like you need relief for unique use through the planning board during site plan, cause big cars, not big cars, what's the one on Route 1, big cars?
Big cars, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was right.
To one to the left.
He reduced that to 30 feet, not 50. So they just asked that while they were there in front of you doing the site plan. So rather than going to the zoning board for relief, because they were going for relief from parking, they wanted to really reduce the buffer. So if we can do it that
So they
way.
can park the car, the
Yeah.
trailers there and those lots, yeah.
So if we can do that as like a waiver during site plan, it would make life,
Yeah,
especially for something like that, where you're looking at a site plan and going, hey,
Where it's obvious you don't need 30 spaces.
exactly, you've got 3 employees, you don't need 30 parking
And
spaces.
then we discussed
It is-
that, I think.
it is there. With, section 13, complete
If-
parking and traffic circulation plan if applicable.
Was you're reviewing it, but in terms of, do they have say to
Yeah.
reduce the
Yeah.
amount of
Yeah,
parking?
yeah.
So that's just ask, so like again, if our thing says if you go over 20 units, you can
Yeah.
ask for a traffic study
John.
to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is the buffer, I guess this is the language I was thinking of, so,
I like that, but it should be
yeah. G,
We need
like
more-
more spelled out.
Yeah,
So,
that you're asking
So,
for
5G.
relief for unique
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what
use,
I'm saying.
right,
Okay.
rather than, Cause I could do
What, for the
this
parking
as an
of the
office
50 feet,
building,
you mean?
I need 50
No,
spaces.
this was,
You could be doing as a warehouse, you need 4
The
spaces.
buffer
Right.
between.
the buffer between
That's a
different
unique
districts.
use.
different
Oh, yeah,
districts.
yeah.
People get that a lot with Siemens, we're always getting asked, why don't you tax Siemens more? It's a $400 million
That's why we're
building.
talking about moving to section
It is,
6.
but the building's only worth 4 million.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the
all.
use is worth 400 million, it's a unique
Mhm.
use, so they don't get
Yeah.
taxed at 400 million, they get
Yeah.
taxed at 4 million. Same with this, it's a unique use.
Mhm.
That would be an idea to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, so I was just mentioning something, this is what I'm familiar with, because I don't know, for Spring and West, did you enforce that buffer, or did you let them go in within the buffer?
No,
You enforced the buffer for Spring and West?
because they
No,
had,
we did have to buffer, because
yeah,
they were gonna put.
the drainage, underground drainage.
Something in between them. and
Yeah.
it,
Okay.
We forced them to move it.
To move it back, yeah, they had a filtration system in the buffer.
But I guess the language here under
Yeah.
5G references, technically if it's under site plan review, the planning board has kind of
To modify it.
the ability to kind of modify it, and it doesn't have to be treated like a special permit, which would have higher
Yeah,
restriction or requirements.
yeah, because I think if you can show unique use to the planning board, they'll go, yeah, get rid of all the parking.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot easier for an applicant, I mean, it's obviously, and it's also discretionary, right? So
Mhm.
someone can't come in and be like, 2 spaces, I mean, the planning board still has the ability to be like,
No, you're going to the zoning board for
Yeah,
special permit, we
yeah.
don't agree with you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, at number 6 there, that's kinda like wide open, right? It's up to your
Yeah.
discretion. Is
It's
that-
like
That is-
everything.
That's her first question, right?
He likes that.
Well, no, so that is one that's put in there because usually it comes across in larger buildings. The reason being is take, say, the mall for starters. The mall was done in the 70s. Malls are changing. So if you went to the zoning board or the planning board and got a site plan, because you're asking for a use of a building that's unique. And then if you change, like, so you could have all stores and all of a sudden you're all restaurants, you're all this. We look at the parking and say, yeah, you fall in the criteria, yeah, you're good, or we're missing some parking, we go, yeah, you're good. If it's extreme, we go, no, you're going to the zoning board for relief.
Let me throw out an idea that's dumb, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Could all parking really be kind of subjective based upon what the use is? So like, I'm saying, we have a requirement for certain parking, but if
Yeah.
you're a restaurant and you're coming in, you're like, I only need, my capacity is only, whatever, 30 people, I
Yeah.
only need 15 spaces or something like that.
No, so we have actually a pretty good,
I mean,
Yeah.
just an example,
'Cause-
like,
I wouldn't do also, the only reason I wouldn't do subjective,
yeah.
honestly, is I value my life, because what I find subjective and say, yeah, it is, and then it exacerbates it, someone's
Yeah.
gonna come at me like, from my head
And
going,
then when it's a
you said it
problem,
was good, when it's a
then
problem, they're like, you said it was fine, I'm going,
Yeah,
well, they taught me this, but they did this.
no.
I like to think about, my life.
No, I wouldn't advise it either, but it
Yeah.
also is one of those things where it's like, well, if you're a business, you take that risk on, right? If you're saying,
Yeah.
I only need this many spaces and.
And we get it a lot, like, we have some projects in town that where it's a drop-off zone.
Yeah.
They drop their kids off to come back in a few hours. So technically you're not parking there, and they're like, well, we've a ton of parking, going, yeah, you still required, because again, the use could change.
No, I agree, yeah, I wouldn't actually advise doing that, but it's just kind of one of those things that's, alright, what is that,
Yeah.
take away, you can make a waiver, and just make
Yeah.
it.
But I do like the fact to use it, something, a modification through the planning board, on something that's got a unique use, if you can word it or make it like a 5B or something,
How do other towns do it?
parking.
Yeah, is there anything we can learn from them, like?
You could review.
I can look into it, like I know residential parking is unique and like there's towns like, just to speak from ones I know, you can speak better in Norwood. Norwood have like a residential parking,
Yeah.
doesn't exist. Matt Losh worked immersed in them.
I don't know if
There is
Norwood's
no-
changed theirs, but the parking was always an issue, because they always wanted way more parking than was practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been a while, I haven't taken a look, I don't know if they've changed it since then, but that was always something that came up when it was like, especially if it was anything on Route 1.
Yeah.
Just like the amount of parking needed was just not realistic, and.
I know Matt Walsh, Lord immersed in them, he did reach out
Yeah,
to a lot of towns to find out what they had to see, what one they could implement in, because I think it all started, and you might know him, Ed, there's a gentleman over there, when the neighbours cut some trees down, found he had like 50 cars in his backyard, he was
Oh,
just a
then-
collector.
So that's a good, yeah, so that's it. So with the parking for commercial, I have to think about, where is parking right now at, 827.
Yeah.
But, yeah, commercial was excessive, but to Jim's point, they had nothing, no requirement for residential.
Residential was
So if you
weird.
had like, hey, I just got 30 cars hanging out in my yard, there was nothing they could do about it, which was,
As long as they were registered.
as long as they're,
Yeah,
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 as long as-
Well, I know they
As long
have
as they're-
something before it's on.
The trailer one is weird in Norwood, I never got. You can park a trailer on commercial property as long as there's nothing in it,
Interesting.
which is weird.
Really?
So you can't use it for storage, but you can park them there all day long as you don't fill them. It was always a weird thing, I never understood that one. But I'll look into,
Well, it's like
Yeah,
the
I
church up
never
on
really liked the
27 where
section
they have all
8,
the
it
buses
just
parked
seems,
all the time.
I
The
don't know,
church up on
like,
27 as you head to Sharon.
not
Yeah.
usable,
Yeah.
You know, all
I
the
don't know.
All the buses are-
I'll pull for the next week, for next week, I'll pull a few towns, I'll reach out to the
I would
guys.
say to the, so what do you mean
They
by
in Sharon-
Sharon-
they're in Sharon,
within
though,
section
aren't
eight,
they?
just
They in
the
Sharon?
parking
The
counter?
church.
I think
Just
that is.
like, the fact that everything's 6, and then you've gotta like figure out, is it non-competing, competing, I don't know, it just seems overly
Yeah.
complicated, but then like not,
Well, it's a complication, but it's a one-time complication.
I know.
hopefully.
I don't know, I'm just
Because you don't
curious
wanna
how other towns do
build
it,
the
if there's
thing
a
and then not
cleaner
have
way to
enough
do
parking
it,
or
or.
just have
Because
too
it
much
kind of is
parking.
something that is,
Well, that's like,
to a degree, hot topic, because, again, residential wise, we changed it, was it 2 years ago, Patrick? Because originally it was like you had 3 cars and that was it, and we were like, yeah, when I grew up, it was my dad had a car and that was it.
Right.
Yeah,
And then my brother bought a car when he got old enough and that was it, there was 2 cars in our house, but you
now
go,
a
like,
family of
we're
5
doing-
has 5 cars.
yeah, like we're in the high school over right now, and one of the biggest things in the high school is more parking,
Yeah.
because the kids want, every kid's better cars than I drive. So families are turning into 4, 5, 6 cars on their property. So yeah, it is changing, and again, parking downtown, we do have fights with the buildings, the neighbours fight with each other with that too as well. I'll get 7 or 8 towns, and I'll talk to commissioners and see
Similar to
what,
split lots, so we get
Yeah.
examples of how that's kind of looked at,
yeah.
especially, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe we'll look at it and say, "Ooh, we're doing great, and then,
Yeah, we might say we're actually pretty good, maybe, or we can steal stuff and make it look better.
I think the hardest thing for apartments is for visitors. Usually there's not enough
That's a
parking,
fact,
and you
yeah.
go to visit somebody, and you can't park.
Any
No
of
no
those,
place to park, or it's like,
like the one down in East Walpole, whatever, one of the big issues, where the visitor's gonna park.
Yeah,
And it's a question of they're parking in the driveway or something, but looking at where their cars are parking. Are they parking all their cars in the garage all the time?
yeah,
And we try to get a minimum amount of free upstanding parking for
Yeah.
visitors.
so that's where it's gonna play, because then
It's always like,
the issue, because you want green space, but you want visitor, but then going, how many people are gonna visit? You might have no friends and no one coming here, you might have a
do you
huge family.
design the parking based
One
on
thing we've always
Christmas
seen-
Day
parking
or
right-
whatever?
parking
Yeah,
green
exactly.
space, right?
yeah.
Then that-
Well, for larger
Parking in green
developments,
space.
they usually do, at least the standard, they prefer everyone that's come through, is they always want far less than 2. I mean, it's always, you're looking at really 1 to 1.2, 1.3.
Mhm.
I know we at
If you don't
MBTA, we have
have
at
families,
1.5, but
I'd even go lower.
the thought is, and it depends on obviously the person or the group that does it, but like having non-assigned parking as opposed to assigned parking seems to be the factor that
Yeah.
never makes an
First
issue
come,
for
first
tenants.
served, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have assigned parking and you see spaces open, you're like, crap, I gotta go find my space.
Mhm.
And so I think that seems to be the big issue.
Mm.
We have, I mean,
We had,
police and DPW would know.
we had a
would know
fight
more,
last
but-
year with the assigned parking, and Liberty was a pain.
Yeah, Liberty seems to be the issue because it's assigned parking, whereas
95 West,
95
and
West.
never can call
Yeah.
them.
And they have less parking at 95 West.
And
as
more
opposed-
people.
And more people.
There are 50 more apartments,
It's like 1.2, and I think the parking calculations.
1.4 for.
4, yeah.
Liberty has problems all the time with
You
people.
know Liberty?
I live in Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well, are they the ones that
Yes.
park in the street there, along the
Yeah,
street?
and that's the killer too, is to have the sign parking doesn't help, but
People sneak out the
I mean,
garage.
the tenants not
No,
even.
it's okay.
They sign a lease, there's one lady did come into us screaming, we're like, do you have a lease, because I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
and our lease stated you're allowed 1 parking spot.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I have 2 kids, and I go, that's not our, and that's not the landlord's problem either, you signed a lease
Mm.
stating you knew you had 1 parking space and that was it.
Yeah.
You brought 2 kids with cars, that's on you, you're paying extra, you have to, so I think she eventually found somewhere she paid for parking. That's where the sign parking we don't like,
Yeah.
but the visitor parking, yeah, that's where.
So I just kind of want to see what we going back to this, is there any questions we see with,
Well, I look at number 4 there, and, do you need a doctorate to figure that thing out, or what?
which one, not
Number 4,
8.4?
it's like,
Calculation.
oh my God,
Yeah,
that's as bad as that last article.
Yeah.
No permit, you know? So you have a choice of one or the other? I've never seen, I think it's,
Baseline
I've
parking
never seen
calculation.
maximum parking.
Actually, John, this was.
Maybe it's too late to
At
comprehend
the last
that.
planning board, when they said they were above the maximum. Do you remember that?
What's that?
At the last planning board meeting, somebody said that they were above the maximum for their zoning, and they were trying to bring themselves down below and
For
asking
the
us.
parking?
Yes,
Mm.
asking us for
How
permission.
often
One
does
of the
that happen?
substitute
I know.
things,
It was the one, oh my god, not, yeah,
they
yes, on South
were
Street.
doing a revision to the site plan.
Yeah, they were like making an addition.
Adding another.
Oh, was that Tufts?
No,
No.
49?
something else.
Is it 49 something?
59 summer, I think, yeah.
Oh, yes, the landscaping company, yes,
Yeah, they're adding another building.
yeah,
No, they're adding, 4 more bays or something,
Yeah.
I see.
Mm.
cause then that's where that exception the patch was on would come into play. If it's a unique use,
Yeah,
you could reduce it, cause there won't be a requirement for all that parking.
makes sense.
The thing is, they have a lot of extra space there anyway, so.
Yeah.
it's
Right.
not an issue.
And the concept of like having a maximum parking, I'm not against that,
It's
only for
unusual
the
to
fact
have
that
an
sometimes,
option, we're looking at minimum.
you know, you don't wanna have an excess amount of parking. I know that from the actual tenant of the property, the owner of the property has the need for that
Oh, I
amount
see,
of parking.
they have 2 things, a maximum, they have put a maximum
You
and
get
a
a special
minimum.
permit.
Is that the first part?
It's
is
almost
the
like you go with the maximum on the first part, and then it has, what the 4th line there, I think is, it says, or you can go minimum of 1 parking space, right? So you have 2 choices there, one or the
It
other?
sounds like that, you have to be
Right.
somewhere within their
You have to
maximum
fit
allowed
within it,
and
yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, cause 4 kinda gives you an option, again, depending on the use.
Mm-hmm.
If you go with the max of 1 per 200 square feet, you could get a higher amount, but you could say, well, I don't need that amount, I'll go with the lower amount, the 1 per 500, to get a lower. And then the special granting authority where you can go above that would be kind of that way.
So how about if we went like 4A and 4B, to separate those 2 instead of the or in there?
Well, I think the purpose of doing that is to give the
An
applicant
option.
an option.
The option, but the thing is, you have to read it 5 times to
Yeah.
figure it out, you know?
Is there an easy
So
way to say?
you could have a 4A or
Reformatting
4B,
it so you see
You know,
the 2
or
things,
A,
maximum,
or something like that,
minimum,
you know what I'm saying?
Like.
Leave it in the same area, but just have A or B.
Yeah, you have like the first 3 lines, and then you start the middle of the 3rd line down another space, so it starts a
Right.
new line. I don't think you'll have to add any more spaces, it'll just be reformatting the sentences.
Well, there's a good
Talking
number
about this,
of,
or-
Yeah.
Sorry, alright, I was like,
Yeah.
uses
So
that
I was looking
at
have
8.4,
parking
so
code
yeah.
Well,
for.
all right, so you
There's
see
a
where
good
we're
number.
at,
Yeah, 4 is one of the more
after,
common.
on the
Yeah.
3rd line, after floors, it says or.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it should be divided right there and have like an A and a B.
yeah, like come
You
down,
know,
So,
so
A
you have an
or B.
option of A or B,
yeah,
and, right? And, you know,
It
make
might make it easier
I think
to
when you
read,
look at
yeah.
it, you'll know,
Yeah.
cause you gotta read it 3 times to
Yeah.
figure, find the or,
yeah,
like we
I
look
didn't
for,
see it.
no, right, and the permit, right?
Yeah, I thought they were all stacking on one another, yeah.
Yeah, oh.
alright. So do we have any questions with baseline parking calculations? That's
No,
explaining
that's
the need for
studying.
basically a special permit if you go below or
And
above.
that's probably more of an engineering almost.
Yep.
Yeah, I think having that section 5.
So parking reduction, so shared parking, shared onsite parking is being calculations. this is an opportunity to kind of make that.
Oh, so, yeah, both of these tables, whatever, yeah. So like, you have the restaurant down below, whatever, which is only using it at night, and you have the stores above
Yeah.
or something, which are only in the day. They aren't competing with the same spots, but if you
Yeah.
have two things that are both going on at the same time, you have to accommodate both of them.
Yeah. So it'd be similar if you had two buildings, one's a breakfast place, one's a restaurant at night time.
Yeah,
They could both use the complete
yeah,
off each
they aren't
other.
gonna be fighting
Yeah.
in the same spots, yeah. I suppose the mixed uses or something like that too,
Mhm.
because the residential are looking for the spots at night,
Yeah.
Yeah.
other ones will be looking for it more in the daytime with the big openings, hopefully.
I don't have any questions about that, I may just have to kind of continue to read that over, the non-competing uses. So this is one where I kind of find it's a little bit complicated, we just kind of have to,
Yeah, this is just.
we're in the weeds, right, I mean.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, that's the competing use and then specific use to a degree. Like, it's one of those sections that is rarely used, it's kind of there for protection, but.
Is there a better way to say something like this without making it, or is it just kind of like leave it as is? I mean, there's definitely
What
some thought
page
that
is-
went into this. Yeah, this is of the zoning bylaws or of the,
Well, it's, so she's changed.
Page
some
4.
of it, right?
yeah, so 3 and 4 goes over that whole non-competing uses and
Oh, I see it, yeah.
competing uses.
Again, that's kind of a worst case situation, because you're never gonna have that combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I've never used that section, honestly, that table since I've been here.
The only time is like that parking out there,
Yeah,
Yeah,
or out there,
yeah,
because it's
whole,
bordering all those businesses,
Yeah.
town hall, the other things too. Because most parking, and that's really a municipal parking lot, really,
Yeah. and again, in centre town,
yeah.
for commercial, there is no requirement for parking, so,
So it's how much space you have to
yeah.
provide them with
so
a-
don't, this is probably, I mean, so 8.5, I think maybe take a closer look at how relevant this whole section is. It's very, I guess, just put some thought into it, but I'm not sure if it's really complicated.
I don't know the dimensions and stuff, but I tell you, Norwood's parking is awful because the, travel aisles
They're very
are
narrow.
wide, and it's hard to back out of a spot to get in.
Oh, yeah. I've run
And
into
then even
that a
their
lot.
turning radius.
The
is-
turn races and the
and
aisles
they-
are.
Their new, when they did the Shaw's parking lot over, I mean, were they brain dead?
Yeah,
It's awful,
yeah,
it really is, and you can't, and then they did that, perpendicular parking up against the building, oh my God, you can't drive through the place, it's awful.
yeah. That or the big Y, they have tiny lots.
Yeah.
It's very,
I shop both places, that, getting in and out of the,
Oh, yeah.
or out and especially.
yeah,
But even,
I have a long car, but.
even downtown, most of the lots aren't big enough, it's like they,
yeah.
Cars are getting.
it's almost like they started correctly and then they get near the ends and, they had to
Squeeze
squeeze
it
it
in
down.
with the line.
I mean, my pickup truck doesn't fit in between
Yeah,
the lines in most of them, you know, so it's,
you know, they have a very, I think their dimensions are small, like ours start at a minimum of 9 foot by 18.5. I don't even think I think they went with 8 foot, which is a state reg, so usually for handicap parking, it's an 8 foot wide aisle. Walpole have 9 foot wide aisles, or spaces. I think Norwood stuck with the 8 foot, so you're losing a foot every single space, so after 20 spaces, your lot's 20 feet smaller than like what we would have.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, yeah, I'd usually park at the far end and walk
Then again,
everywhere.
the Shaw's,
Safe.
their circulation pattern is awful too.
It's awful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
That bank in the corner there is always, you're going here, then suddenly you have to go this way and then this way to go around it, yeah.
Even Home Depot, when you come out onto Sumner Street, you can't go left.
Yeah.
So they force
Oh,
everybody to
Oh, I
go down
hate that.
Union Street.
That's because the
and these
neighbors
walls.
complained.
Yeah.
And then the
That's why
same,
there's no.
same with Wendy's out the back.
Says
They
no
won't
one
let you
counting,
get
I
right
go
down
around
Sumner.
it.
Man, give me a break over here.
Yeah, you know, that's all driven by people showing up and
Yeah.
letting the planning board know they didn't want to
Democracy.
turn them. Yeah,
Mhm.
that Wendy's was very controversial.
Yes, there a bunch of times.
Was it?
Well, I know, did
Oh, yeah.
Ernie
Getting out of the
Jr.,
gas
right, didn't he,
station and you want to
Yeah,
get
they didn't like
back.
the, they didn't like the
Town.
fence.
Yeah.
So you gotta go out, cross 3 lanes of traffic,
Yeah.
and then get into the U-turn.
I've seen people gun across there.
Yeah,
So I'm just highlighting this just because I think it needs just maybe a closer look,
I don't know
8.5 in
if
general.
Kyle can provide any information on some of these.
Well, I think
Yeah,
all our
some of these
dimensions,
uses.
all our dimensions are working pretty well in the town, I think. huh?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, our parking dimensions, I think.
Dimension wise, we're pretty good. So 8.5, maybe, or so you think talking to Carl, maybe. get
Let's
him
see
in.
if I can find out something.
Yeah, no, ours is good on, because it has the requirements for the lot sizes or each space, so
Yeah,
it's straight on
So
or at
let's
an
just
angle.
let's just try to get through this one. So 8.6 storage containers.
We had a
Her
big,
comment
we
here
had
is,
a big issue up at Walmart,
yeah,
years ago when I was on the planning board, and, when they brought the storage containers in, I think around the holidays and stuff.
Mhm.
It was taking up a lot of room. That's another thing with supermarkets, you approve it and all the parking, and then, once they open up, you go there, and they have how many spaces taken up for the,
Container.
carriage returns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The car returns. So they probably take 15 or 20 spots away,
Mm.
you know?
So I like when they have those things, 'cause
Huh?
I don't have to try to,
Yeah.
either
Well, I know
leave the
you're
car
right.
out in the parking spot, or go all the way back to the store, it's much easier to just go over.
Yeah. Then all the supermarkets on hills, for the people that don't put it in, they come down, cars will hit your car.
I don't see that too often anymore. Although I did see it not too long ago.
Okay, use, but any use.
The wind just took it
oh,
in.
well, their parking codes would be for temporary uses like this.
Hmm?
So what was the issue with the storage containers?
No, this one, so it's moved to so right now the way section 5 is, and I know we haven't got over that, is the recommendation was to have the use table and then a separate accessory use table to kind of break it up. Her references for this one is storage containers removed to the accessory use table. With parking note, consider whether a parking code should be added for temporary uses like this, which I'm not.
Why do you need a parking?
Oh.
No,
Because I don't.
Because they take up parking?
Oh,
Yes.
that's- No, when they say storage containers, they're talking about like the iPods or just
the Connex boxes.
Yeah.
Connex boxes, the drop, like they'll drop, as Ed said, Walmart were notorious, we had a fight with them last year and won that one. But they, Christmas comes, they put in 5, 6, 7 of them, take up a lot of parking spaces.
Mm.
No, so they're
To do
considered
what?
different
What is
than
it for?
just the tractor
Just for
trailers.
seasonal stuff that come and get delivered and just, they don't have room in the store, so the
Oh.
wedges.
Just inventory, they're storing inventory
Oh.
because this building isn't big enough.
I see,
So they're
okay.
bringing the trailers with all of
So
this
those are
stuff.
They're not like selling
Different
things
than
out
the
of
tractor
it.
trailers?
No, no,
just-
no, no.
Yeah,
Different.
because tractor trailer's movable, so if the tractor trailer is in a parking spot per se, a container being dropped isn't a
Okay.
parking space and it takes parking spaces, so that's why I think it was in this section, I kinda think it should stay, because
Yeah.
the reason it should stay, like, the accessory use table is fine, what the use is great, but if you're plopping it on land, okay, but most times the point, they're picking up a parking spot, cause these places, so now you're removing parking, that's the required parking.
Should parking code be added for temporary uses like this? So we don't, if I guess what she's referring to is, do we add like a 7?
I think they have a designated area, doesn't, Jim, doesn't Walmart have a designated area for the,
The containers,
yeah, for so many of them?
they did, but they
And then, yeah, but
they went excessive, like, we got called out, was it last year, a year and a half ago, and the whole back lot, the reason we got called out was the fire department went up for a medical in the back store, they couldn't get in. Then they drive around all the way to the front to go through the building to get someone. because they had the
Really?
entire back of the building completely blocked with containers.
Oh,
They had
Wow.
12 up there, I think, which we made a move, but
yeah.
that's why I think it's here too, is because
Yeah.
if you're dropping them in the parking lot, you want to look at the parking count, because you're taking away, one, you're taking away parking spaces, but the site plan's altering. You're temporarily altering the site plan as well.
Yeah.
So that's why they wanted to go to the planning board. And that's what we used, being honest, we used that with Walmart when they were all up there, we're like, all right, you're going to the planning board, get your site plan done, and they were like, we'll move everything. Because they didn't want to spend that kind of money,
Yeah.
so they moved it pretty quick on us.
Planning board.
Yeah, because you'd have to pay 4 or 5 grand for a site plan,
Yeah.
then apply to the board, go in front of the board.
Right,
By the time you've got through, get your site plan, got this planning board, you're 3 months in,
yeah,
the container's probably empty and gone.
right, it's
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where it gets kind of funky with this. And again, usually where it does deal with the bigger sites, and again, as we found out with Walmart, they were blocking the fire lanes, so again, that's where the site plan would come in handy with the planning board, is they're gonna look at turn radiuses, can the vehicles get in there, they're gonna look at what the site plan
Yeah, we're gonna
requires.
make them do a.
Yeah.
radius for the
Is
trucks.
gonna be out the
You
way.
do like a minor modification to your site
Site
plan
plan,
or
yeah.
something?
Yeah,
But it's a temporary,
It's a temporary,
so.
so that's where it gets,
but a temporary for a safety thing isn't really gonna fly, I don't think.
yeah. So like unless you put something in that if you're doing storage containers, do you make it a limited site plan? And then the fire and police can decide, no, this is major, you're going to the planning board.
Hmm.
So at least then you get some look at it from the fire and the first responders' view. It'd be a small bit quicker and less money
That's special.
than a special permit would be. Because if you say got containers, okay, give us a site plan, appear in front of all the department heads, Carol, fire, police,
Okay.
you could do that within 2 weeks. And you'd find out that day, yeah, it's good or not, or they go, no, this is crazy, you're going in front of it. If they didn't agree with us, then we're like, okay, now you're going to the planning board for a special permit or a modification to your site plan.
Alright, so,
Do you want something like that in where you make it a limited?
Interesting. Yeah,
Because again,
because especially, I think it's because of the temporary nature of it.
Yeah.
It's like, you
Right.
gotta really go
it's,
through that.
as Ed said, it's seasonal with Walmart, so they're doing it for Thanksgiving through Christmas into New Year, and then they're gone. Then you might be bringing it back when they're changing from spring to summer here. Plus they're doing additions, so they'll be back anyway.
So, I have that note there. Location of spaces,
it all depends on the lot.
it's all depends on the lot, it seemed to be not much changing here other than off-street parking here.
Does that have the section on, 10%,
Landscape, yeah.
landscape?
Mhm. Or it's in the next, it's
I
further
think
down.
it's, I think it's further
It's
down.
under
Oh,
8.8,
okay, it's like-
yeah, but it is there.
So, actual date, bylaw was amended to include this provision, I'll have to look that up. Street parking spaces not in existence. Residential district contains 5 is 20 feet from the street lot line, if visible at normal line. Oh, this came up with, is this the one that came up with, Patriot Tavern, or not Patriot Tavern, the, Cedar House?
The one down in 1A?
Yeah,
Well,
cause it was technically a residential district, and so.
well, the residents, the buffer came in there, it was actually, the parking could go into it, it was the buffer. They had to have a 26-foot buffer, but they could have parked, so residential you can park into the buffer zone. It's the commercial spots you can, so like Route 1,
I think this was like the fence, right?
yeah. Well, they had the fence, and then for some reason the board moved the fence in 15 feet under their property, which is insane.
Yeah, 'cause I know they were going from parking from several years, they were thinking about it, and they just never did anything.
Yeah.
But I know at one point they went to Concom or whatever, because it was lowlands there, I know, walked the area once, there's no water there.
Yeah, no, it was one of those, so it was, what did Landis call it? It was wetland and it vanished, it's a movable wet, it was she had some term.
Oh,
It
yeah.
appeared, it vanished, it appeared, it vanished.
Periodic stream or
Yeah, it was
something.
something weird.
Intermittent stream.
Yeah, it was something weird like that kept appearing.
Alright. So, finally done that. Section of single 210. Yeah, okay. I hate tandem parking, so
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't make sense unless you live in Boston or New York or something.
And you have someone there all the time to
Yeah,
move your
yeah,
car.
yeah,
so-
Liberty Station, right?
Yeah, we do have it, yeah.
Yep.
I would visit that.
No. So parking aisles, obviously, we don't need to change that, that seems to be on agreement pretty good.
Pretty good.
Landscaping requirements,
You got to take some.
this is, I mean, whenever this is put in, this is very detailed, I don't, off the top of my head, have so much with an issue with anything, I don't know if anyone else, especially, you know, planning board, any concerns with that?
I wish several lots use that,
Yeah,
like the CVS lot or
Oh, that.
oh, yeah, I mean, that's,
the town
That's a-
lot.
You're looking at 360 degrees to see where the cars are coming from, you
Yeah.
know?
That's another thing. Now, part of
Yeah,
the site
no,
plan, I remember when we
Yeah.
did the CVS down there,
yeah.
we had issues with the parking lot. And, you know, out of all the things that I was involved in, that was the most regretful, because I wanted them to actually have the drive-through where the entrance is and the main entrance where the drive-through is. It would have been a better traffic pattern and stuff, but I didn't hold my ground enough, and nobody else went along with me, but it's a mess. But the thing is, so Jim, when we approve the site plan and this and everything else, don't they have to maintain it and stuff? I mean, between the potholes in that lot and there's no markings. I mean, do you have any jurisdiction to make them repair it and then
Yeah.
put some lines in it? Because like you say, everybody's driving all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, you gotta like move, look, and then
Yeah.
you move, and then somebody comes and.
But nobody knows where to go.
yeah, the lines have all faded, so we have a right of, so we're actually in talks with Charlie right now. Unfortunately, his dad passed away probably 6 months ago, and Charlie just got handed 500 million, and he don't
The
care.
father passed
Well, that's-
away?
Mhm.
That's been that way for a while. I
Yeah,
thought,
his
down
dad
there.
would fight you over a penny.
Yeah,
I
and
dealt
this
with
is-
him in Brookline as well, he's a nice guy, but
So that's a specific
It
situation,
is-
I guess we're just getting.
Our plaza's only like this much of their holdings, I think, so.
oh, it's they own.
Oh, yeah,
No,
sorry.
they own the one that's at Chestnut Hill there where Equinox
Oh,
is,
do
or
they?
Wakeman's is. That's his as well. That's one of his many properties.
Really?
So yeah, so he has, like he's probably pulling in 300,000 a month.
So
So
this
that
was
was
not,
one of
this section though, I just getting back to,
Yeah.
let's get on to.
Staying on track.
Stay on track.
Wait,
It is way more interesting, but want to make some progress. No touches here by Carolyn, because this is very much in, I don't have any comments really on this, I just wanted to ask. if
Yeah,
anyone
it's
had any
really
issue.
see Concom, see the tree warden.
Yep.
and We don't have much to say on it really.
Yep.
Until the neighbors chime in. Then we say, okay, I'll move by these thick, staggered, 10 feet high.
So I'm just looking at the structured parking facilities. So structured parking facilities shall conceal views of parked autos from adjacent street views. Which is great, I don't know if it just should be a little more specific. Ground level parking structure may include buildings and or landscaping, so screening of buildings. Alright, just gonna leave that as is for now. Parking
really.
We don't really have a parking garage in Walpole, I don't think.
No.
Well, we're getting one.
And this is the yeah, baby. This is the non-conforming off-street parking thing that will go away, which is nonsense, moving to A10.
Yes.
I really don't have,
I'll ask Jack and see if he knows anything about it.
yeah, I'm gonna do a little more research.
Figure that one out.
His history of this town might provide something.
And how well it's needed too. I mean, it's not come up, it hasn't come up as it really something that,
I think it has to do with the staging of development, or it used to, or probably.
okay.
Because that's the only thing I can think of as where you're getting credits for something.
Yeah. Alright. We'll leave this one as is right now. I think we had a few comments on it and if we try to follow with Carolyn.
The other was that coming in, would that have been used in 95 West where they have the extra parking across in the lot that we're talking about the other day?
Oh,
Right.
with the West Street?
Yeah,
Because they
95
had-
West has extra parking that's not on their property.
That's
But is that extra, that's not
the
their parking
non-conforming
count?
though. We allow for,
It's
Well, it's factored
yeah.
into the parking code, because that's why they needed
Yeah.
that lot. They didn't have enough parking
Parking.
spots without it.
So they have it.
So they had to
there.
go outside
So
of
that
what
would be
they owned
non-conforming
to
though.
lease
we
stuff.
have that whole
They lease that.
provision where locations,
Mhm.
stations.
They lease as
It needs to
they
be
lease
500
that.
feet.
I think so, yeah.
So is that the whole? Off-site
Street
parking,
parking,
off-site
yes,
parking, so
parking,
we already
that's
kinda
right.
go over
Yeah.
off-site parking,
Gotcha.
that's it,
Okay, within 500 feet, yeah,
yeah,
if that matches.
I'm sorry, we passed it, so, yeah, alright, we'll just
Yeah, I can't figure that one out.
figure this one out at some point, I mean, it needs to kinda be squared away.
I'll try to send an email tomorrow.
So that is the, non-conforming off-street parking. So, alright, I'll leave this one as is, we got our questions, and,
Can I ask one additional
Yes.
question? On that parking relief, under one, where it talks about central business district, I
Yes.
just, I can't remember, what did we do in the other articles? This one says the zoning district dated January 1997.
oh, yeah.
Did we say, like, the
Central
most
Zoning-
current,
Zoning
or
district map.
did we put the date in? I can't remember what we did.
Oh, was this added?
No,
This is the way it is now.
yeah, so basically they added the date with probably this was, I guess,
Probably when they created this.
when they created that most up-to-date zoning map was 1997,
I'm just,
but
you remember
Yeah.
we
Try to
set
have
a
it most
standard
up-to-date. Yeah.
how we were gonna
How
refer
we're
to
gonna
things,
do
and now I can't
the,
remember,
overlay
but whatever we
districts.
decided, we should
Yep.
fix that to, or make sure it's the
Oh.
same.
yeah. Well, this is I think a question too, so I mean, this is East Walpole
East Walpole,
Parkville
Appendix
Parking
A.
Overlay District, which is Appendix A, which I'm not sure, it doesn't have a date
Doesn't.
associated with it,
Well,
which is,
It is Appendix A though.
it is Appendix
Appendix
A,
A,
but
yeah.
it's just kind of,
I think I think the planning board at the time asked the question on, they wanted a date put on it,
Yeah,
or as part of this, and we were like, there was no date.
yeah.
We couldn't find a date, unless
So-
it's confirmed with 97.
I mean, this also, I guess to your point, Sarah, probably update this to be reflective of what the most current CBD is.
Maybe, yeah,
And
or
then,
don't say.
That might have
date.
been about the time, no, I think it was after that,
what was that?
97, when East
Yeah.
Walpole, when East Walpole was done.
Oh, no,
I think we voted at a town meeting. Yeah, because it was
The-
like a zoning
the-
change, right?
yeah.
So we did vote at that town meeting, so you'd be able to get the date from that, I would think, right?
oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
So how come they, but I thought it was, like a CBD district in East Walpole, they have a different name for it?
So, yeah, no, so
East
so
Walpole.
East Walpole is a business
Well, I
district,
see, yeah.
but
when
they
created
changed it
this,
to give them relief.
the relief from parking for commercial parking during the central business district is based upon the zoning map from January 1997, which is all well and good, but if you're gonna do that, you probably wanna have it be corrected to be the current zoning map.
Just-
Because if the zoning district boundaries changed, it would default to
Right.
the one that's referenced, right? So if the CBD changed to expand, you'd have to look at 97, not the current zoning map, so that should probably reflect the current zoning map. And then this, I mean, I guess we'd have to kind of find the date or add the date both to this as well as the map within appendix A. One sec.
Yeah, because I think I mentioned 204, when they opened up, they had to have parking and used the auto body place across the street for
Yep.
years.
Mm.
But then once this district was changed, where they added that no on-site parking,
Yeah,
they were able to,
make it work.
yeah, they didn't
Park
have
up
to
the
use
street.
that over there.
Yeah,
Well, everybody parked, well,
yeah, because all the
People
changes
still
in
parking over
97, it doesn't mention this, so I think the 97 is specific to the CBD. The
Yeah.
East Street one would have to pick out, because it was
It's whenever they created the parking exemption, because
10 changes in 97.
I'm looking at a marked up
Yeah, I don't see anything.
of section
on
4,
those
where
Yeah.
several things are referred to.
Yep.
And so it'll say dated and revised through October 2021, and then
Mhm.
there's July 25. And so it seems like that's our convention,
yeah,
to put like the latest
Version.
thing,
The
so we
latest.
probably should update that.
yeah. I mean, this is it's a problem, I guess, right? We have a reference back again to the maps within a specific section of the zoning, but those maps have one that has a date, and that date has changed, so that also should be reflected. Unless you want to only, allow for parking relief
Yeah.
for the
And then-
CBD as it looked in 1997. Yeah.
And then go force applicants to try to track down the map from
Yeah.
1997.
Yeah.
I mean, this one is also like,
Kafka.
I don't know if so section 4, obviously that's referencing what is the current zoning map.
Yeah,
Here, I wonder if this one, could we just write the current
That's what I was.
zoning
right,
map,
that's
right?
what I'm,
Zoning map,
Section 4 kind of covers what the date is, this is
Yeah.
like, as the current zoning map, I kind of want to do that.
I'm okay with that too, I
Yeah.
just thought we should be consistent.
Yep.
yeah. And,
On file with the town clerk, or
Yeah,
however we
right.
say it.
Because that's the thing, if we change section 4, now we gotta remember to all of a sudden go back here and change that, or if we find just one area where the date changes,
Right,
we covered in section 4, and this
Yeah.
just refers to the most current.
current, yeah. Current zoning, yeah, okay.
I don't think that's bad. I think that's-
it's okay, yeah.
Okay, I have those questions, so close out section 8 for now. Leave section 5 and 6. I wonder if it might be easier to kind of, so it's 9 o'clock now too, and when I obviously I've been doing 2.5 hours. What if we wanna kind of, what's everyone's thought on just maybe starting to take a look at section 6? Well, I mean, I'm kind of bouncing around, I realize that, I didn't know if those previous sections may be a little bit easier to digest than diving into section 5 right now.
Yeah,
I think we need a full evening for 5.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good idea if we went home and maybe kind of marked out everybody, pick what they think we should really discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also need to talk to Carolyn Landis for their input on part of section 5 and their removal and stuff. I want to get into that and then their opinion on it as well for the next meeting.
So what's everyone's thought on just maybe taking a look at 6 right now? We can put it up for the next meeting or spent, or we can spend.
If we're not gonna finish it, I'd just assume
Wait, alright.
Once
Yeah,
you
Jim's
train
like,
the
just like,
That's me twice.
let's do that, and I guess right now, let's think about, the town meetings, the warrant's open right now. We're getting close to obviously being the summer, it becomes problematic for finding a date. Do we want to try to find, I know we've been doing once a month, do we wanna try to think about us? Yeah, having another meeting date
So,
in June,
are we
or?
gonna- yeah, so we're gonna try to get something for, the fall town meeting? Are we trying to
We're
get
gonna
I
try.
think we should try.
Yeah,
Because you said, like, Jim, you said that it's not as busy without the budget and stuff.
Yeah, so,
I mean, it'll be a little busy, I mean, we'll have capital, because capital's. but that's-
yeah, we'll have but it's
that
not to the degree of the
category's
budget, like that takes usually a huge chunk of,
The,
always in May.
Mhm.
the
It takes-
budget actually went easier this year, this
Yeah.
spring, than it usually does, but.
Yeah, usually
I
like a
personally would
large,
love to get 5 in and do the changes and get that.
that's a big.
I would like to get that done. The other ones, I think we can live with everything else, but I would love to get 5 on the warrant for this year.
I'd love, yeah, I honestly to say, I'd love if we could spend time on 5 and 6, cause
Yeah.
they're the biggest ones we get, not so much the articles, but the reasons we get a lot of complaints are is
Yeah.
the size of buildings, the placement of buildings, art removal, 6 with the dimensional requirements, that's what most people come in complaining about, or basically those two are the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they'd be good ones to get if we can,
Okay.
but again, I'm trying to just find out when the warrant article closes so we can play around. It closes on August 19th.
19th?
So we have to have everything ready and in front of the board for that, the 19th, and then we can do our public meetings through FinCom and planning.
Yeah, that's besides that.
So not, yeah, August 19th is the close date. So like, do we want to get at least 2 in, if not 3 in before then? 2 at least,
Yeah.
maybe 3 if,
But honestly,
I don't have a
probably-
life, so I can do 3.
Yeah, I know, that's, I do think 3 is probably, I don't know,
Yeah.
at least
Definitely 2.
one in August and 2 in July.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, July. That's a
Could we do something, say, the week of the 7th to the 11th of July, and then maybe the 21st and 25th of July? Would that work for anybody?
I can't do the 25th to the 1st, I can't, on July, I can't.
So 21st to 24th would be good for you.
The only day that week that I could do would be the 21st itself.
Okay,
21st.
so 21st would work for,
I
it's a
can do-
Monday?
That's our zoning board.
Zoning board.
So unless we stopped at
Call in sick.
7.
well,
Come on, we're
Yeah.
more fun.
can we schedule it around the zoning board meetings, I don't know.
It's hard.
What,
Those people want to meet
We have to
at like
do
4.
5 to 4, 5 to
So-
7 or something.
Would anybody be available like next Wednesday? Is that too soon or what? The 25th?
Wednesday.
I could be available
I,
Wednesday.
I can't do that.
No,
which day?
the
25th Wednesday.
I can't do
Can't
the
do that.
first week of July either. I mean, the second week of July,
Okay.
you said, so. So maybe,
Can we do
don't include me.
I cannot do any I can't do any Thursdays unless it's raining, and, or the 3rd Wednesday.
Boy.
Anybody around July 1st, the Tuesday?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I suppose so. Tuesdays is generally probably a good day, but nothing really comes up on Tuesdays.
Is that
I'm
work
not-
with people or no?
I'm not, but do we have a quorum rule? If nothing works for, we could do like
Uh,
3 meetings and.
No, there's no.
No, it's nothing like
We've
that.
missed-
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not like
Planning board or
planning
zoning
board.
board?
Yeah, you don't need to.
No.
We just need to talk. So, if the first works for, does that? So obviously that doesn't work for you, John.
Doesn't work
Does
for
that
me.
work for everybody else? No, Sarah. No.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
That's
you're going.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
That's okay.
No.
What's that?
It doesn't, I can't attend a meeting that week, but that's okay. I mean, if you do another one later in
I'd like to get as
July.
many as we can here, because
What
we're
about
going
the
to
8th? Yeah,
5 and 6.
No.
Is it all
big
Tuesdays you
topics.
can't? Oh,
No, just
oh.
like that,
The first
those
week.
days. It was like,
I would say overall Tuesday's a good day for me as far as that.
Yeah.
All right.
I could do the week
Best.
of July 14th.
I can do that.
The 15th and the 29th.
Wait a second,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the 14th. Oh, no,
It
that's-
can
Are we looking at Tuesdays?
I
15th and
just-
15th?
I could do that.
Yeah.
That's all I know right now, yeah.
Alright.
So what do you
Or
say?
16 and 30.
16 would be better.
16.
Either
So,
one. I-
16th.
I'm good either
15th.
date, but, so what works for everybody? Is Wednesday, so, would
As
be
long
July,
as it's-
Tuesday and Wednesday are
Oh,
really the
well,
only days I could do.
you're
so.
meeting the 16th. Planning board?
On a Wednesday?
No.
It's
No,
Wednesday.
jeez, sorry. No. Forgot what board I'm.
Do you have the
So I-
Wednesday,
No.
the 16th, or does the 16th not work for you?
Me?
Yeah.
In July, yeah, I think, yeah, the 16th would work.
Okay,
So that's a Wednesday?
Mm.
that's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That sounds like no, yeah, as long as there's no zoning meeting that day, right?
No.
No.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds good.
If you guys don't mind.
And
Yes,
16th.
it's better for me too.
Oh, wait a minute, that's not good for me. Oh, yes, it is, because we don't have a Lions meeting in July, so.
So 16th works for everybody, and then a second meeting either thinking around the 29th, 30th, which is a Tuesday, Wednesday. That work for everybody as well around that?
Let me put in, so July 16th, right?
Yeah.
Can we make 6 o'clock okay?
Yeah,
For
it's fine.
everybody?
Does 6 o'clock
Is
work
6
for
o'clock
everybody?
okay?
Yeah.
What day
do
is
that,
that?
yeah.
Which day?
It's a Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
So, 16th and 30th at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
doable.
The
Yeah.
30th I can do.
Six-
Megan, that's
Wednesday the
fine.
16th.
Can you do the 29th?
No, that's, I'm
Are you gone?
Oh, you're gone for that.
gone that week, yeah.
Is it 29th or 30th work for everybody else?
Wednesday.
I'm gonna
I
check
could- I
this.
could do-
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Either.
What's the
30th
day
is
of
slightly
that
better for
next
me,
one?
but
30th, okay, so 30th.
30th?
Wanna go that
Sorry.
16th and the 30th?
Let's see.
We should plow through those two pretty good.
The 30th is a Wednesday, I have something that week, so hold on. No, I can't do the 30th.
29th?
29th?
I'm waiting in Aruba.
Oh, you are?
My son, so I can't go.
You can FaceTime.
You're probably not
somebody.
here, you're probably not here the 29th.
Huh?
You're probably not here the 29th. then.
No, that's what I said, I'm out, that whole week I'm out. So we're going down the 25th, coming back the
Okay.
1st, so.
So we got one date.
It's hard in this.
Oh, I
It's-
know,
yeah.
I know, this is tough.
So we can do the 16th is confirmed.
Yeah,
So nothing works, I know next week's a little soon, but nothing works like the 26th or the 24th.
Of next week.
Yeah.
I could do, I think I could do,
um,
I could do the 24th or the 25th. Or the 23rd.
yeah, we have no meeting next week.
I could do any one of those three.
Did I almost-
Okay. Can you?
I
So you
can't,
can't,
no,
So,
but
okay.
that's okay.
Well, if you wanna do 3 and then like you'll miss one and I'll miss one.
Right.
We could do that,
We can do that, alright.
yeah.
Okay.
So do you want to do, say, next Tuesday, the 24th?
That works for me.
I can do that.
Yeah,
And just use that as a focus on 5 and 6,
Yeah.
similar to this. So tomorrow I'll talk to Carolyn to get these initial edits to her, see if she can revise, and then the 24th we focus on 5 and 6, same deal.
And
See if
then
I get the initial edits, and then hopefully for that
July, we can do a
July,
recap.
we're squaring it up for the July meeting and the August meeting.
Yeah, we can plan August meetings.
June
We got,
20th.
Because we have to do one in
Yeah,
August.
7 days sometime.
Well, we don't have to do one, but we can get one prior to the 19th.
Right.
it would be
The
actually
article
closing
That'd be
one in
16
August, though.
Yeah, just to narrow it down to what we're presenting.
What
And I have to figure out
time?
the select board schedule.
6 on the 24th also? Is that good?
Yeah, that goes with G. I have no problem.
Yeah,
Hang on, I should be free.
this will be working.
yeah.
And then if you just want to look into it for August, what suits you, like we can plan,
We'll
In
plan
July,
this in July.
but just look into August because we said the article closed on the 19th. So if we could do either the first or second week in August, just to
Yeah,
narrow down exactly what we're putting in front of the board.
And I guess to John and John, I can be available for the planning board meeting if you wanna discuss
August
that
6th?
in July.
Yes, it's the
Um,
17th.
Yeah,
August 6th, what is the, what,
I'm not
Wednesday?
sure how much we got scheduled that day, I got to look.
yeah. I only bring that up because I know like this last time I went through zoning board, I went through the select board. I guess the thought is it's gonna be the select board again, but I could certainly
Mhm.
have that
Ask.
discussion.
Yeah,
I just don't know what the zone, it's gonna look like when we get to that meeting, because it may be, we're gonna need the July meeting and probably
Because we need to get to the select board, because if they're meeting the 19th, it means the select board meet the 5th as well. And we'll have to ask them for sponsorship.
the 5th of August.
Yeah, they're usually every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, if I could, if check with planning board if they are okay, or
Want to.
have any questions, or if you want to sponsor, but if not, then at least that way we
We
can
can
confirm before going to the select board.
Yeah,
Um,
we can fine tune it for the night of the 19th then to have it exactly what we want to present.
And the other thing too, I mean, we're putting away what we want to be on the warrant, but if it gets fine tuned prior to going to print, that's
That's
still,
okay.
that's still fine,
That's
so.
allowed, yeah.
That's very, yeah,
We can tweak it or
doesn't need to be 100%,
As
cause
long as the premise.
town meeting's in October, to be
Yeah.
finalized in August is kind of,
Not that much.
yeah.
As long as the main premise doesn't change, we can tweak
Yeah,
the articles or as we go along.
but we wanna have it as figured out as much as possible by the close.
So the warrant closes on the 19th, but we can still meet the planning board and the,
They come after, once the articles are accepted, then we go for a public meeting with the planning board
Yeah.
and FinCom.
but that could be after the 19th.
That usually goes in.
Oh, it's gonna, yeah.
It has to be, or?
No. So the 19th is, we just have to have warrants and ask the select board, either the planning board sponsors or they're sponsoring us, and we present it, so we have the meeting there before the closes to make them valid. And then after that, you have 60 days for the planning board and FinCom to hold a public meeting.
The likelihood is, I mean, similar to the fast time, so I'd like to meet the planning board if they want, if you guys want to talk, if not, it's okay, but if planning board doesn't want to sponsor, which again, if that's what
I
happened
would
last
assume
time.
at this point we do not.
Yeah,
Unless they give
well, at least option to ask questions,
Okay.
if you want, but that at least we can show the select board, we've talked to them, and
Yeah.
if we, select board sponsors, then they'll probably, we'll have till the 19th realistically.
Yeah. Because they can also accept it on the 19th to sponsor it, and then it has to be by close of meeting for them to, for the warrant
Yeah.
article going, so we can,
And what
we
they
can
get
even
push
push it
to
to
them
them.
is what gets sent to the planning board for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can even push it out,
Plus,
even if they're meeting
yeah.
they're meeting on the August 19th, so we have the 5th, and they're meeting on the 5th probably.
Mm-hmm,
So even if we don't get them to sponsor on the 5th, we get them to sponsor on the 19th,
yeah.
and they accept it, then they'll close the meeting, that's when the article closes.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be fine. Then, again, if we want to tweak small things,
I mean, probably they need to meet between the 5th and the 19th, I
yeah,
would think,
yeah,
but we can deal with that.
we can do
later.
with that, yeah.
Yeah,
Again, if.
As everyone knows, our schedule in August, is, I mean, vacations are coming up then, but,
Yeah.
alright, let's,
16.
So do we pick one in August, like the 16th?
I think.
I mean, the 6th of August?
we can do that now if we want,
Do a preliminary.
Does that work for everybody?
August 6th.
what day is it?
It is
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
are we meeting on August 6th?
Yeah.
We might be, or
Yeah.
we did the second meeting.
Well, we're meeting next.
Wednesday.
For
it's
me,
zoning
it's not
board.
an
I
issue.
think it was on-
Huh?
Just wondering if it was gonna be.
Well, if you want to say, if you want to look at your calendars, because we're
Wednesday.
meeting next week on the 24th.
Yeah, so
we
zoning
can
board's
decide.
meeting on the 6th,
Yeah, okay, so,
I think.
Yeah.
13th, is that too late?
13th at 9?
I don't know.
I'm fine with the 13th if everyone else
that's,
is.
good.
Tuesday?
It's a
That's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday as well.
Is that what you said, August 13th?
Yeah. You should be sobered up by then, Ed, will you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should
I
be by then.
get home Friday evening, and then I gotta get in a car early, because I've golf tournament up in Vermont on Saturday.
Oh,
And we have a 1 o'clock shotgun, so I gotta get up there, 3.5 hour ride, so.
best to look at that one.
Alright, so, seems like a lot, it is a lot. We'll see, obviously, next week, we'll just focus on 5 and 6.
Yeah,
And hopefully have some clarity on the other ones. I mean, everything kind of has to like, I feel like shake out at the same time, just because some of the changes are all kind of interconnected. And hopefully, town council give us some clarity on that, or other advice, we'll have that for next meeting. So about that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
second?
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,